All right. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good as well. Excited to have you on, and hopefully everyone who is tuning in today on a very gloomy day, at least where I'm from, are able to enjoy a little preview for this upcoming window. We'll be talking about Curacao match, we're talking about Honduras, the roster, lineups, and anything you guys really want to in the chat. So, yeah, get your questions away. But first thing, just we got the vibes going right now. Got a little music in the background, Alex. I like it. But where are you tuning in from today? Are you in Ontario? I can never really keep track of you.
Yeah, I am today. It is gloomy over here as well. So, but yeah, I'm here for the game on Tuesday. Let's hope that it's a bit better by then. I mean, I see snow in the forecast, which I guess would both be simultaneously cool because Canadians snow soccer versus just nice weather. So a bit on the fence on that one.
Yeah, well, we're planning a couple of fun little things for the game on Tuesday. So I'm really hoping that it's not terrible weather, but yeah, guys, anyone who's coming in the chat, the first question of the day is going to be give your predictions for this upcoming match. I put it out on Twitter earlier today, and there was some pretty positive people, except for Adam, who said he was feeling a little bit nervous. But besides Adam, the majority of people who interacted with that tweet was pretty excited. But yeah, big match tonight, 9 o'clock. Alex, I want to get into the starting 11s for a bit because I mean you and I basically had the same one, but you did put an interesting one out there, so I want to kind of dissect that a little bit. But how you feeling about the game tonight? What are your initial reactions going into it after looking at the roster, letting it time to digest, and just getting ready for hopefully a pretty exciting game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it should be really an interesting game. I think I'm always been very high on what Curacao has kind of built as a program over the last few years. I think they're a good team. I think it's a tough draw for Canada to get both Honduras and Curacao, especially you see how Grenada looked last night in another group, but that's a whole other discussion. I think it's going to be tough away from home. Their field isn't the greatest, which could be something to watch for Canada. Of course, they want to pass the ball, hold the ball. So let's just say the turf they're probably going to see tonight might be a bit different than the grass they saw in Qatar, for example, and where they were able to pass the ball and hold on the ball a little more. But I think despite that, Curacao also wants to play a very up-tempo, high-possession game, and I think it should match up nicely against how Canada wants to play on the ball, the speed that Canada has. It should be an overall good matchup, and I think one where Canada can be confident of heading in there and getting a result, but also one where they're going to get a good game and they're going to get tested, and be made to work for whatever they have to get.
Yeah, and there's a lot on the line, to be honest. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. Like, we just did a video talking about everything that this window has to offer for the Canadian national team. So they really need a result here because I'm doing the math correctly. Even if Canada loses, but win against Honduras, that would mean everyone would finish 2-0-2, correct? And then it would go on.
Yeah, and then it would come down to like goal difference or whatever the Nations League tiebreaker is, which I guess we could check.
Like I say, I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I mean, there's a lot at stake here, which makes things kind of exciting. So, I mean, I'm always a little wary when it comes to CONCACAF away days. We know that they can be difficult. I mean, the game against Honduras spoke for itself. It was a slip and slide match that unfortunately Canada couldn't get a result in. It was probably one of the most frustrating matches I've ever watched in my life, just because Canada couldn't really do anything, and on top of it they lost. But I'm very intrigued to see how this one goes, and hopefully back in Canada to get things done. But let us know, guys, in the chat. Put your predictions in, get them going. How do you think Canada will do this window? Luke Carey says he is calling 6 points, but I'm gonna go into the starting 11 that Alex built, because actually I'm gonna see if I can find the one that I built first. I'm pretty sure they're the exact same, but I will go to yours.
I think they're similar. I haven't seen the one. Well, I've seen your one, but I just forgot what the difference was.
I'm struggling to even find it.
Mine should be pretty recent. Yeah, I found yours.
You found mine? Oh, I found mine too. All right, I will share mine, and I just want to hear. Mine's pretty straightforward. Like, I feel like if you're looking at this and putting together like a starting 11, I feel like mine's like all right, this would make sense, but yours definitely intrigued me. So I do want to go over yours, but we'll bring up mine quickly. And yeah, guys, let us know in the chat what you think of the starting 11s as well, if you guys had different thoughts. But this is the starting 11 I came up with. 4-4-2, I know, Alex, I don't know. I don't know if we're quite ready for that three-man midfield, but that was kind of the logic behind it. We have two of the hottest strikers right now in CONCACAF, which is why I went with David Laren. Davies Buchanan just feel natural on the right and left. You have Kone Eustaquio, which, I mean, apparently it's crazy to think that this could be Kone's first ever start, subtracting the Bahrain match. And then Cornelius was the shout that some people thought was a little bit interesting. Larea comes in for Johnston, and then Borjan. So, Alex, digest mine a little bit, because I think yours was only one different, but don't spoil it yet. Just if Herdman did go with this exact starting 11, what do you think would be some of the thoughts behind that?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, one thing off the top, just because I did get a minor correction on the Kone stat, because just to clear the air on that one.
Okay.
He started against Panama in the final window. That one was just, I don't know about you, that one game was just wiped from my mind because, they'd already qualified. It was just, he played 45, then came off. So it would be his second start other than the Bahrain game, but still maybe a chance for him to go more than 45 for the first time if you want to amend the stat. That's slightly.
All right, slightly. It's fine. No one noticed.
But in terms of the lineup, I think I like it. I think it would be relatively straightforward. I think what would be nice is it provide a good mix of familiarity because Canada has played this system before, and they used it to great success against Curacao. I mean, of course, it's a slightly different Curacao team in terms of coach, in terms of players, etc., but still one that's relatively similar to what Canada faced last June. I think you get the informed David and Laren working off each other. You get Davies in more of a left mid role, so maybe less of a free role, which he looked good in that left mid role against Curacao. You got Buchanan as well alongside him, so you get that wide threat. A pivot of Kone Eustaquio. It feels like Canada had a lot of successes with Eustaquio and Hutchinson as a pivot, but then Hutchinson kind of lost his form a bit. Eustaquio got injured. If you have a healthy Eustaquio, a healthy Kone, who, as we know, brings a good mix of technical skills, but also the physical profile to play in a two-man midfield, and then you just combine that with a straightforward back four. I think I like a lot of what this brings. I do worry just a bit about midfield because Curacao does have a few technicians in midfield, including Kone's teammate, Leandro Bacuna, and then they've got, another Bacuna because they've got the Bacuna brothers, both from the championship, and they've got some other strong midfielders, but I think this lineup could very well go toe-to-toe with Curacao and really dominate them in wide areas in particular.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the starting 11, you look at a 4-4-2, I mean, unless it's like a Cholo Simeone 4-4-2, when you have different players that can kind of tuck in, the midfield will always be a concern. I think we could probably both agree if Canada played maybe someone, like a Belgium, like someone we played in the World Cup, that midfield can be exposed, and it has been exposed. But in a match like Curacao like this, you're hoping that they could probably get the job done and just kind of rely on some of the extra outlets that they have. But you set me up pretty nicely for another question here, guys. And if you're just joining us in the chat, Alex and I will be here for a while. This is just going to be a big stream, hoping to go off of just anything you guys want to talk about around the window. We got an excellent question, which I am excited to answer. It will be on the Nagelsmann sacking. I haven't really talked to Alex about it, but we'll get to that soon. Have a few other ones, but yeah, get your guys' opinions in here. Give us predictions and really anything that you guys really want to talk about. But for right now, I do want to go back to that three-man midfield. I think it's very unlikely that we see Laturi start, but it's intriguing to see if we potentially will see him throughout this window at all. Alex, what are your initial thoughts? It's been pretty cool to see Laturi speak about obviously like how exciting it was for him to be able to make this way to the national team. He's very happy. Do you think we're going to see him this window?
I don't think we'll see him start. Again, I mean, maybe he shows well off the bench today, and that we'll have to see in a few days. Maybe the opinion will shift, but I do think it's one where hopefully we can see him off the bench just to get that opportunity. 10, 20, 30 minutes is always a good chance to showcase yourself, and from there prove that you deserve to get a longer look with Canada. I mean, that's kind of how a lot of players embedded their way in. Think of an Ismail Kone, of course, as a prime example. I think it's something where we excited about the profile. I think excited about what he brings given Canada's need for a number 6. So it's something where I'd love to see what he can bring, just because we've been calling this for a while, just in terms of augmenting that number 6 depth, and hopefully he can just get a chance to showcase what he can do, because good on the ball, good defensively, that's the sort of attributes you need at that position.
I agree, and we just got another good question. I want to get to yours. Now we're gonna digest Alex's a little bit. I'm gonna tell you what I interpreted it because I saw a couple of people commenting it, and I just wanted to, let you know how I thought it was going to go. But and it's going to bounce off of this question it sent in from Nicholas, which we appreciate. Get your guys' questions. But Alex, I believe like the way you were looking at this, because I looked at it at first, and the Buchanan at right back kind of threw me because then I was trying to like adjust how this will work into a back three. But I'm assuming anyone who's watching, and Alex will correct me if he thinks that I am wrong, it can play in a 4-4-2 like this, and it can also switch into the 3-5-2, which we're very familiar with. You would see Buchanan / Larea go up to right wing back. You'd have, this is where it kind of got me a little bit, because you have Atakubi and Vittoria. So I was kind of imagining like, I guess maybe one would go on the outside right, Vittoria in the middle, Atakubi maybe drops, or are you just thinking of a 4-4-2? Because now I'm confusing myself a little bit. But the way that, like, if you look at that midfield, you have Eustachio, Kone, Osorio, Davies, Buchanan on the wing backs, and then David Lairn up front. The back three is kind of what got me. So what were you thinking when you put this starting 11 together? Did you want it just to play in the kind of a 4-4-2, or were you able to kind of move it? And where is Vittoria playing in that back three? Because I have a lot of questions. I just want to hear what you had to say about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this one's a bit of just trying to get into John Herdman's brain a little, because
difficult.
It's always tough. So the way I saw this one is mainly a 4-4-2 off the ball. Usually a lot of John Herdman's formations, what we see is what they are off the ball. And I think that's an important distinguishment to make, because I think, for example, you see Tajon Buchanan at right back, and there was obviously a lot of like, oh, why is Tajon Buchanan at right back? And I understand. But the way I saw it is just look off the ball. He's been playing that sort of role for Bruges. He can do it. He's got the physical capacities. Would Alphonso Davies make more sense in the left back role? Yes, but I just don't think you bench a guy like Sam Atakubi right now in a game like this. So therefore you get Davies a little higher up. You get Atakubi at left back, and then Buchanan occupies that right back role off the ball. And then from there, I had Osorio on the right mid role to compensate for that, just because it's a role that, if some remember, he played there against Mexico at the Azteca, for example. It was a three-man midfield of Osorio, Eustachio, K, and that was one of Canada's best games in midfield all cycle. And I think this away game against Curacao, of course, very different level of opposition to Mexico, but I think it's going to be similar. Like, much like Mexico, Curacao's good in the midfield. The pitch might be a little rougher, so you're going to need that midfield control. And then I think from there on the ball, there's two scenarios I see playing out. I see one where Buchanan shoots up, Osorio tucks in, and Vittoria tucks over to the right, and it just ends up being a 3-5-2 with Atakubi, Cornelius, Vittoria. A bit unconventional, but Atakubi has played there before, and Vittoria as well. Or the other one that I think could be more likely, Eustachio drops into the back three in possession. It's something he doesn't do a lot with Porto anymore, but he did a lot with Canada, and I think it's something where, in an ideal scenario, it's Atiba Hutchinson playing that role, but given Atiba Hutchinson's fitness, I think it's something where you say, look, Eustachio, we want you higher up the pitch, but, we need your skills a bit deeper, the same way Johnson has had to sacrifice sometimes his offense to help Canada on the ball. He would drop into the back three, on the right of Vittoria. Cornelius would go on the left. Atakubi would push forward. Davies would join the front two, make it a 3, and then it would be a 3-4-3 on the ball.
Okay, I was gonna say, because like when I was trying to dissect, because I had looked at the comments too, and there was a little bit of confusion, and as soon as I looked at it, I was like, no, I get it, because like I said, like you look at that three-man midfield with Eustachio, Kone, Osorio, it makes total sense. Buchanan shifts up, you have Davies the front two, it made so much sense. It was the back three that was like, he kind of lost me a little bit, because like, for example, yes, Atakubi doesn't play that role very often, but I know you and I have talked before that we think that he could drop into that outside left center back role, but then you got the two lefties there, and then that would maybe push Vittoria out to the outside right, which so yeah, that's what kind of got me a little bit. So that makes a little bit more sense. But it kind of goes into Nicholas's question. It just shows how important Alistair Johnston is, being able to kind of have that ability to play as a right back, outside right center back. He does it very, very well. And Nicholas wants to ask, do you think Zator was brought in to replicate Johnston as the right back, center back role in a back three? So my opinion is, I think that might have some influence on why he was called up. I think Zator was called up because, one, he's in excellent form. And two, Alistair Johnston does have that suspension. He is able to play as kind of that backup in those two positions. But I personally don't think we'll see, kind of like similar like to Laturi, I don't think we'll see Zator start. So Nicholas, I do believe he was brought into camp for like that Johnston type replacement because, again, the suspension, but I don't think he's actually going to physically replace Johnston in the game. I think they would probably go with a different lineup. The one I came up with is a little different than Alex's, but it's relatively similar. Alex, do you think that there's a chance that we could see Zator potentially start a match? Because like you'd have to imagine if he's going to start, it would be against Curacao because Johnson is back against Honduras at home. And it would, in my opinion, be to replicate. Like if they did go that 3-5-2 type system and you're having Zator shift out to right back and outside, because it's not a bad idea, but I don't personally see it happening. Do you?
I think he'd fit that role. I just think it might be a bit too much too soon for him just to start him in a huge away game, CONCACAF, game where Canada needs and should win. I think it's something where maybe we see him off the bench. Maybe Canada struggles to kind of replicate, some of what they need out of their back three, back five with no Alistair Johnson. Then maybe Zator gets called in to fill that. That's maybe the more likely scenario, but I just think it's something where, yes, the profile is similar, and I imagine he played there a lot in training, but it feels like he'll be used more as a, break glass in case of emergency kind of thing where, okay, Canada's really struggling, need that body who can help progress the ball and bring a little solidity at right center back. Then I think we could see Zator slot in.
I like to try to call before the window, and it's very difficult to do. The kind of the role/minutes we'll see certain players play, and I am by no means an expert because I've been wrong very, very many times. I have a feeling with like the Laturi-Zator situation, my gut tells me that we're going to see Zator at some point, whether he's off I don't think we'll see him start, but I bet you we'll see him off the bench, potentially in both matches. I have a feeling we may not see Laturi. I don't know why. I just have that gut feeling. We've seen players come into camp before, not been used, but it's just exciting to be there. I don't know why. It's in the back of my head, but we do have a question about Laturi still, and it said, can Laturi become a star like in the Premier League? I mean, I think he's such a talented young player. He's got a big ceiling on him. He's got a long way to go if he wants to make it to the Prem and play at that consistent level. But he's definitely one to keep an eye on these next few years. I think they're going to be very crucial for him. Getting a look with the national team, I think, will be big. Showing that he consistently can perform in Scotland and maybe earn a move to like around a top 5 league. Even Belgium would be like a nice league towards the top. Netherlands type club. I don't know what if he was going to make a path to the Big 5, Alex. What do you think would be the best way to do that? Would that be making another step from Scotland, or do you think it would be staying in Scotland, or maybe going to like a Celtic, Rangers, or how do you think him potentially making it to the Big 5, and can he make it to the Big 5?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that Victor Laturi is still super young. I think he's just like 21, 22. So that's plenty of time. He's already had this, year in Scotland where he's adjusted very quickly from, CPL, jumping right into playing on a Ross County team that struggled. Like they're a team that could legitimately get relegated. But I think what's been encouraging is that he's played his best games against Rangers, against Celtics. So the two paths I would see is either he sticks within Scotland, maybe Rangers or Celtics. We're impressed by what they saw from him in his performances. They sign him, and then maybe at 25, 26 after a couple years there, then he can make a jump up to a top 5 league. Or alternatively, I think, given his technical skills, maybe he ends up in the Netherlands in an Eredivisie or, a Belgium in the top flight there, and then uses that as a springboard. But again, I think given his age, there's a lot of growing. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens with Ross County, because I think if they go down, then you have an interesting scenario, because I think he proved that he can definitely play at the Scottish League level, so going down a division would not make sense. But say they stay up, maybe you just stay there another year to really dominate, and then all of a sudden those sorts of scenarios become a lot more realistic.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of uncertainty in terms of young players and transfers, but I think he's showing a lot of promise, and I'm really hoping that a potential move, even to like a little bit bigger league. I don't think he's in any rush right now to make that giant jump to the Prem, but he's definitely one to keep an eye on. But for you guys in the chat right now, we will be here for a while, so get a comment in. Drop a like on the stream if you guys haven't done so yet. But if you don't have a question in terms of the national team, just let us know where you're tuning in from today, and let us know how the weather is. Because Alex is in BC, I'm here in Ontario, and gloomy, rainy, cold, not that nice, but we got to come on here, talk a little Canadian men's national team. So let us know how you guys are doing, and I'll try to go through a couple rapid fire questions because we don't want to miss any for you guys. But this is one that I am very intrigued to talk about. And it does impacts Alphonso Davies. I don't think there's getting around that. But what do we make of the Nagelsmann sacking? I was very surprised. Bayern don't tend to make a lot of financial mistakes. They're just, given the way that the German league is run, the 50+1 rule, very traditional league, they're very good with their money. And to see the figures that are starting to come out from buying Nagelsmann and buying him out from his contract at RB Leipzig, I think it was about 25 mil, paying him, I believe, 8 mil a year, and then signing him on a 5-year contract to sack him not even 2 years in is astonishing. That was a huge swing and a miss. And he has had it's not the best Bayern season ever, but I don't think considering they're going to the Champions League, they have not lost yet. It's very, from a Bayern fan perspective, you're kind of like, okay, we got Thomas Tuchel. It's not the way that Bayern are performing. But from a Canadian national team standpoint, this has been some of my favorite football I've seen Davies play in a very long time. I'm really hoping he can continue that under Tuchel. I'm very familiar with Tuchel. I know the way that he can potentially line up. I'm assuming he's going to stick with the back three and having wing backs for the first little bit, but don't be surprised if he kind of transitions into a back four. So, I mean, I just think the whole scenario is pretty weird. And from Davies' perspective, he's just been so hot lately. And I just don't want anything to kind of interfere with that. Alex, what is your thoughts on that? Because this pretty much blew up Twitter when it broke down. And I'm just looking at it basically from Davies' perspective, and I don't like it. But in terms of, and I don't even think really from the Bayern sense, it makes a ton of sense anyways, but I know that they didn't want Tuchel to get picked up, and that's basically why they decided to make this decision now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't actually really hate the Tuchel part. I think he showed also at Chelsea that he can run a back three, which, again, I think given Bayern's best players, a back three just seems to make a bit more sense because they're, they've got a lot of options at the back and in the attack and at wing back, and they're a bit thin on midfield. So this kind of 3-4-3 they've been running works well with just the overall players they have. Because I think Tuchel will keep it. He played a lot of 3-4-2-1 with Chelsea, and I think wing backs like Reece James, Ben Chilwell, they did very well under him, and I think that's not going to be an issue for Alphonso Davies. I just find the Nagelsmann firing more confusing given the timing. Like, he's still in every competition. Bayern have proven in the past that if you can't get results, look, they're not shy to fire you. But I usually find they're a little more like, okay, you not failed to win the league, because they've done that 10 years in a row, but if you fail to do well in the Cup, you fail to do well in the Champions League, then they have that itchy trigger finger. Nagelsmann just has gotten 2 very hard back-to-back draws in the Champions League. He handled the first one well, was about to tackle the second. He's still in the Cup. He's still very much in the league. They control their destiny if they can win, Der Klassiker next weekend. It just felt early, and I think it's one where, I think it looked like there was a lot of off-the-field things. Like, there was a bit of a spat between him and Manuel Neuer, who was a very influential figure at the club. Some players have been quoted in the past being confused of his training methods. Like, I think I saw this morning Leroy Sané was, talking last year on record to the Athletic, saying that there were times last year where he was confused with Nagelsmann's training methods. So maybe it's something where just that combination of them being in a bit of a gray zone and then the players speaking out kind of played their hand. But it just feels a bit strange for Bayern, because you look at a lot of the issues Nagelsmann's dealt with. Some of them are also just related to what, the off the field he's been provided at the squad, like no number 9 to replace Robert Lewandowski. That certainly can't be easy for a manager to deal with when Lewandowski was the ultimate exit plan cheat code for Bayern the last 3 years in the league, where every game they'd struggle, Lewandowski would score a goal to save them. You also look in midfield, they look a bit thin. You wonder if they could have shored up there a tad bit more. Especially injuries to, I think, Gravenberch didn't help, considering he was a big signing. And those sorts of things just feel a bit out of Nagelsmann's control, and his record spoke for itself in that regard.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would just genuinely just surprised because of the situation that Bayern are in, being in all competitions, really thriving in the Champions League, which is clearly the competition that they desperately want as well. And like you said, doing without Lewandowski, plucking out basically 35 plus goals from a 34 game Bundesliga season. It's very difficult to do. So for 100%, it had to be something beyond that. And even since Nagelsmann's got there, I remember reading articles around little things that kind of, rub people the wrong way. So again, I don't have any total inside information on that, but it had to have been a little bit deeper than just the performances. But they did pick up a very talented manager, and curious to see what Tuchel is going to end up doing there. But going back, adjusting a little bit back towards the CanMNT national team. And if you guys are still with us in the chat, be sure to drop a like. say hello, get your guys' questions in. It's going to be exciting tonight to see the match against Curacao. We do have Vince saying that it's sunny and 10 degrees in Victoria, BC. Sorry, guys. I'm a little jealous. It was pretty cold this morning. I went out for breakfast and I was freezing my butt off. But we do got a question coming in, and I think that this can. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. From I think having a midfield three of Kone, Eustachio, and Laturi could be incredibly solid defensively. I think moving forward in like a 3-man system, especially if it's like a 4-3-3, that would be a very ideal system. At the moment, just given that Laturi's just coming in, it's very unlikely, but it wouldn't surprise me if like a year down the line, that would be Canada's potential go-to 3-man system if that's the system they end up going with. Laturi has the attributes of the 6, then you have Eustachio, Kone, who can easily do a job in that 3-man midfield. Can you think of, like, again, Alex, just picture from a year-ish from now, can you think of a different 3-man midfield that you would prefer potentially over these ones if Laturi could continue his development?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think I'd agree in terms of the principles. I think Kone and Eustachio are going to be Canada's midfield for what, like a decade going forward? Like, Kone is certainly at least, and I mean, Eustachio, no signs of slowing down on his end anytime soon. And I think given what they've shown for club, they seem to be at their best when they're all-action number 8s, especially Eustachio lately, going from that 6 himself to being an all-action, all-around, box-to-box number 8. You want to make the most out of those profiles, and I think what's nice is beyond them, there's a lot of other 8s that could fill in. You got Jonathan Azor, you got Mark-Anthony Kaye on a bit, the bit of the older side, and even on the younger side, it feels like a lot of Canada's up-and-coming midfielders are usually more 8s, or, they're 10s becoming 8s. Or you think of a guy like a Sean Rea, for example, he's more of like a 10 winger, but I think he could also be an 8. You got Mathieu Chouanière, who maybe is someone we're sleeping on a bit as well, who could become an 8. But I think to get the most out of them there, it would be nice to have a 6 playing underneath them, shielding them. I think we see that a lot at the top level. We saw that at the World Cup. A lot of the best teams had these sorts of 8s like Kone and Eustachio, but the way they were able to do so well is they had the freedom of a 6 underneath them. Think Sofiane Amrabat from Morocco freeing up Unahi, and Amdallah to really do their thing in front of them. And I think because of that, Laturi projects so far as probably the most likely option in a year's time. He's got the one that's on the right track. But look, there's a few intriguing options. I think of someone like Ralph Prizo at Colorado. He's been playing as an out-and-out number 6 there. And if he can continue to start more and get more minutes, maybe that's someone you throw into the discussion. I think there's also, a few other youngsters. Of course, a guy like Liam Fraser can't be ruled out. If he can maybe get a move away from a Dainze, find his feet again, his profile fits in very well, and he's familiar with this Canadian system. Hector, from there, it's just going to be interesting to see who's emerging. I mean, a long shot as well, but if he plays more for San Jose, maybe we can get a better look at him. Michael Baldissimo is also a number 6. Maybe there's a little more concerns about foot speed, but he's certainly got the technical ability to do well should he, get some reps in. I think those sorts of players are certainly ones to keep an eye on just to see how they do in the next year. Not saying any of them are going to be starting by this time next year, but look, they're options to keep an eye.
There's just that Laturi, just the way that he played. I just think that he would complement Kone and Eustachio so well in a 3-man midfield like that. But we're going to build, Alex, with the chat shortly. We're going to build a potential match or potential starting 11 for the Honduras match. So, guys, give a rating out of 10 in the chat. This is the one that I came up with. Alex's is pretty much the same, except I think he swapped out, like Buchanan was at right back, and then for Osorio was in for Buchanan. So give a rating out of 10 of how you like this one, and then we're going to build a starting 11 for Honduras just for fun. I don't know how exactly it's going to line up. I think we should try to build one like a 3-5-2 just to show maybe what a midfield 3 could look like against Honduras. But yeah, we will see. But yes, Johnston is suspended for the first match, and Miller dropped out, which was replaced through injury, and was replaced by Hebert. Very excited for us, hoping that we can see him play. I'll tackle this one quickly, and then I'll throw one to you while I set up the lineup builder. What role do you think Brim will play this window? I would say late sub, if anything. If he features, it'd probably be a late sub. That's just probably Brim's role. I don't know how much to add to that, Alex. I don't know if you had anything else. I can't see him really starting. I would say probably if he comes off maybe one or both matches with like 70 to 80 minutes. What do you think?
I'd like to see him in a super sub role. I think one thing that Brim has, and I think it's a reason why he's called in, is familiarity. He's been called into a lot of camps. It's easy to forget, and he's done well off the bench. I think I immediately think back to the Azteca. He came off the bench and had a really good 10, 15-minute cameo in that game. So if he can bring anything close to that, I think you're happy if you're John Herdman.
I think so too. I'm going to let you tackle this question, Alex. I think that you'll have some nice insight. Now, I just want to put a little tidbit of information with Coline. So the way that the Netherlands, and they do it for their national team as well, but when they line up players in the second division, that you have to wear numbers 1 through 11, and you usually wear a number assigned to the position you're playing. And I think it is hilarious the amount of different positions and different numbers that Coline has worn. I've seen him wear number 8. I've seen him wear number 10, number 11, number 9. He's played pretty much everywhere. He's a very, very versatile player, and he's one that I think give him like another year or so. I think he could really break out, and maybe it's a loan up to an Eredivisie club, or maybe he makes it up to PSV. But Alex, what do you have in mind for Coline? I know that you've kept an eye on this player as well.
Yeah, I mean, Coline's fascinating one. He's been someone I've been able to keep an eye on since the Whitecaps days. I mean, very technically gifted. That was very clear. Even when he was 16 going up against MLS players, he was very technically sound. And I think what's been good at PSV is we've seen him really continue to grow that area of his game, but become more versatile, become a little more robust physically. You can tell he's able to play a number 9 where you need to be a little more, beefy, so to speak. So he was always very, he was a very live wire kind of player with the Whitecaps. I think it's going to be interesting to see, I think, where his development goes after this season, because he's in a bit of a weird spot where he's in the second division. He's at PSV's second team, but there's a bit of a weird gap between the first team and second team, especially given PSV's a huge club. So it's something where he's at the top of the second team for 2 seasons in a row. He's trained with the first team many times. He's played in first team friendlies. He's been on the first team bench. Like, he's close, but also it's like he's kind of not close, if that makes sense. So I think it's something where this offseason is going to be crucial, because he's had 2 strong years in a row. So hopefully he can either go out to their PSV camp and make the squad out of preseason and, just build minutes. Maybe he starts off the bench and then eventually goes. Long term, he makes the squad, or like you mentioned, maybe a loan to a lower level Eredivisie club could be that next entryway now that he's played 2 years on, most part a top second division team. The good thing is he's only 21. He's a 2002 birthday. He turned 21, I think it was last week. So he's still super, super young. He's been in a pro environment for over a half decade, which is just wild to think. So I think he's someone that, if he can make that jump up to the Eredivisie, someone, of course, to watch for Canada, maybe as a long-term 8 option, even on the wing. I think those were probably where I'd project him on for Canada, given what they have up front in other positions.
And if you keep an eye on Bakayoko, who was a player who played in the second PSV side, young PSV, he did an incredible job featuring, producing, and he's now a regular up with PSV. So there's definitely an opportunity there for him to make it there. There's living proof right now. 19-year-old, he just actually featured, and I think he got an assist with one of Lukaku's goals for Belgium. So there's a beautiful story there that hopefully Coline can follow a similar route. But we have Across the Pond Sports Talk saying that it's sunny and 12 degrees in Saskatoon, which is fantastic. We're not getting into the nice weather, Alex, you and I. That's all right. But he really liked the starting 11 that I came up with the nice 9.5. But this was what I was thinking as well. So we're going to build our starting 11 for Honduras. Honduras, maybe Osorio A. I was thinking that. I don't know. What do you... A, is that what you said, Alex?
I said maybe. I mean, hey, I've got Osorio already today, so we're a lot of Osorio left.
Well, let's build one. Let's just work together to build one. If you guys have anything you want to input for our starting 11 for the Honduras match, now we're looking ahead. I think we both kind of agree, just the players that we have at our disposal, probably like a 4-4-2 in some way, shape, or form. I mean, obviously, as we know with Herdman, it will switch, but let's try to build the one for Honduras. So we're back home. Let's just say bare minimum, and someone actually asked that earlier, and I want to answer that just before we get into this. I think they said, so here it is. So behind the play says, how worried should we be about Curacao, and how many points minimum do we need to make it out of the group? So there's a lot of different scenarios, but ideally, mean, we need to beat Honduras, and I believe even if we beat Curacao, we only have to draw against Honduras, or if we draw against Curacao, then we have to beat Honduras. And I mean, if we lose Curacao and beat Honduras, then it's a 2-0-2 record. So basically, we just got to pick up a point and a win in the next 2 games minimum to ideally finish top of the group. Did I get that right, Alex? That's correct, right?
It's honestly even a
Something
bit more straightforward than that. It's basically, right now, Honduras is on 6 points. They have a +1 goal difference off the top of my head. Canada has 3. They have a +3 goal difference thanks to their win against Curacao, and then Curacao also has 3, but their goal difference is, of course, much lower after Canada beat them 4-0. So basically, there's 3 scenarios that could play out. I think there's one, if Canada loses to Curacao, what that would mean is they need to beat Honduras and make sure they get the goal difference. So say they lose 1-0 to Curacao, they beat Honduras 1 or 2-0, that would be enough. It would just be a 3-way tie on 6 points, and Canada would get through on goal difference. If they draw Curacao, they would then need a win against Honduras. So a draw wouldn't be enough. But their win would just outright get them past Honduras because they'd be at 7 points. And should they beat Curacao today, then they would just need, at the bare minimum, a draw because they would have the goal difference no matter what if they beat Curacao today. So there's scenarios in each situation where they get through, even if they, say they lose today, because you never know, it's CONCACAF, it's on the road. But the better they do, the better it sets it up for that home game to have a little less pressure of needing a win by X amount of goal or X this on Tuesday.
It's as straightforward as it gets, guys. We cannot make it any more straightforward than that. But yeah, basically we need to do a little bit of business in both matches. So Alex, let's have some fun here. I know we have no idea what's going to happen. So let's just pretend that we got a point, bare minimum point against Curacao. So how would you think that Herdman is going to take, and especially because we've played Honduras quite a bit as well over the past 12 or so months, do you like the 3-5-2 system I kind of built here? I mean, it's supposed to be a 3-5-2 flap. It's kind of weird. Or would you start again in the 4-4-2? Or what formation would you want to go on looking ahead to the Honduras match?
Yeah, I mean, Honduras is a bit of a different beast in the sense that, they're going to, Curacao, we know they're going to probably play 4-3-3, whereas Honduras, it's going to be 4-4-2. It's going to be a little emphasis on wide play, even though Albert Elise might not feature still. Romel Kyoto. They've got Lozano up front. They've got, some good midfield, decent midfielders. There, I think you could also get away with the 4-4-2 just because you're not as worried about countering a 3-man midfield like you are with Curacao. So 4-4-2 or 3-5-2. I personally always prefer the 3-5-2, but I could be reasoned with the 4-4-2 as well.
So, I mean, considering that I built already a 4-4-2, you built the 4-4-2, and the fact I'm hearing like Johnston's role, Azorio, I'd say we build the 3-5-2.
Let's do it. That works for me.
I want to say, I mean, I did see a question here. I'm just trying to look for it. And if you guys have any questions related to the positions, we will tackle them one at a time. We will try to get we'll try to get to all the questions. Sometimes I'll go rapid fire, and sometimes I will get Alex involved. But just answering a couple of your guys' questions, yeah. Curacao is definitely not a pushover. They will be a very strong team. I still like our chances. Obviously, Alex said he put 4K down on Canada winning by 2 or more goals tonight. Good bet. Big bet, bold. My man. Big bold bet. I like it.
Bold betting on away games. CONCACAF.
Yeah, 4K too, my man. All right, we don't get paid enough. But where do you guys think David will end up in the summer? Literally couldn't tell you. I would like to see him potentially end up in Italy. I think there's a few good places there. If Osimhen leaves, I'd like to see him maybe go to Napoli. If Lukaku doesn't return, go to Inter. If Milan can't find a striker under 36, I mean, that could be a good spot there. We know Leipzig, there's been those links. The Prem, of course, maybe Kane leaves, at Tottenham opens up. I really can't tell you. It's one of the most fascinating ones out there. I've heard Arsenal a couple times, but I just don't know if Arsenal's a fit anymore for him. Alex, any of those clubs, anything come to mind for you for a Jonathan David transfer?
I mean, based on what he said, I'd say he likely ends up in the Prem.
In the Prem?
But I would, again, my preference would be a Napoli. I think that's the one I'd like the most. Maybe even a Bayern if they continue to not find an out number 9. Or, any of the big 6 in the Prem, provided it's not one of the teams like, say, Man City, where they already have Erling Haaland. You'd like to have maybe someone like maybe Arsenal. I fancy him certainly going up more against Nketiah. and Jesus and Balogun, I guess, if he goes back, versus in Holland at Man City.
Yeah, let's just not send him to Chelsea. It's a recipe for disaster. One more before we go to build the team, guys, and let us know in the comments. We're going position by position, so if you guys have any idea, it's a 3-5-2. So just put in your comments, be like, outside right center back Alistair Johnson, one of the midfielders Azoria. Like, let us know how you'd like us to try to build it. We're building this one for Honduras, but I do like this question, and it's an intriguing one to me as well. With Ugbo and Cavallini not being there, does Akinola get minutes? I'm confused by his addition as well. You'd have to imagine that Akinola will come off the bench at some point. I don't know. I'm so torn on this one, man. When I saw his name on there, I put it in a tweet and I said, "What was your biggest surprise?" I can't remember what the tweet was, but it basically, what was the biggest surprise of it? And I put not even McGill. I put Akinola being called up was my biggest surprise. I bet we see him, but I don't know. Alex, do you have anything you want to add to that? Do you think we're going to see him maybe like Brim super sub? Maybe he comes on at halftime. I don't know, man. This
is the only logical answer I come up with, and I think this would track and could make sense. Is I think one thing it's important to remember with Akinola is that at the beginning of his Canada tenure, which is short because he was a coveted dual national at the U.S. back in 2021, he committed to Canada for the Gold Cup. It was a big deal. And then you have to remember he played a whole total of what? It was like 30 minutes, and then he blew out his knee or whatever it was, or he didn't play much, a few games or something. He blew out his knee very early on. That knee injury took him out for a year. Then he came back. He dealt with the COVID, long COVID. He had the heart, he had the myocarditis, similar to Alphonso Davies, that maybe went under the radar. This is the first time since then, really, where it feels like he's fully healthy. Even last year, he, of course, played a bunch, but didn't completely look 100% healthy. I just wonder, maybe this from Herdman is a sign of, look, like, he understands it hasn't been an easy year and a half for Akinola, 2 years since he committed to Canada, and maybe it's a sign of, look, we just want to bring you in to have a look at you again, to show that you're still in the depth chart. Maybe, you're in most windows, he's still a bit behind a lot of the options, but maybe that's the only thing, just given the way the last 2 years would go. Because, yeah, I'd agree. I'd love to see Ike Ugbo right now. I think if you're looking at Canadian strikers who need a bit of a confidence boost, someone like Ugbo would make a lot more sense, just because, given where he plays, the level he's at, etc. But that's, if we're looking for reasons why Akinola is in the camp, that's probably why I'd imagine, just, and it makes sense because Herdman did work a lot to get Akinola. He was a highly coveted dual national, one that seems set to go to Turkey, for example, or, make a big move in MLS. And then he's just had such a rough 2 years that maybe this is a chance to say, look, we still believe in you. You're still young. Maybe this is a bit of a boost for Akinola to then go to TFC and then win a starting spot.
I mean, I agree, but I feel like Ugbo could have also used that, confidence boost.
I agree as well. I'm just looking at it through John Herdman's perspective, which is important to consider.
No, you are right though, and a lot of us forget back but that Pozuelo and Akinola combination was sensational for a bit. It was very exciting that we got him off the U.S. Like you said, you can't forget that. We can't completely write off Akinola. I remember the rumors that it looked pretty likely. I talked to a couple of sources that Trabzonspor was very, very interested in Akinola, and really that injury that he had on that Canada, it was a start, right? Or no, he just came off the bench, right? And then
I'd have to double check.
I'm pretty sure
it was pretty early into his Canada career. Like, I think he might have even scored or something like that, and it was like hype, and then like all of a sudden actually, no, it was the third game, because I think he got injured against the U.S., I want to say, because it was the irony of him playing the U.S. in that Gold Cup game, and he might have gotten that injury against the U.S., if I'm not mistaken.
It was a nasty injury, but whether he started the match or he came off the bench, I think he came off the bench, but the injury happened right away. But it's changed his career. I mean, those, that form hasn't been there yet. He's basically been out of the national team until really now. And, of course, the fact that, Europe's not looking overly likely right now, but I'm hoping, because there's definitely a player in there, so I'm hoping that something, good and positive could come from this to go back, because TFC could use the goals as well. But all right, Alex, I've been putting this off for a while, guys. If you're in the comments, let us know as well what positions you want to see. We're building this for Honduras because we're a little crazy. I just, we're looking ahead. I've seen a lot of starting 11s for the Curacao one, but I think it will be fun to kind of tamper with it, to look ahead for Honduras, because that will be hopefully a very, very important match. But we went with the 3-5-2. Now, I put Borjan in net. There was a question about keepers. And I don't think we will see McGill. I don't. I don't want to rule it that we definitely won't see Dane St. Clair, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty unlikely. Alex, are we fair to agree that it'll more than likely be Borjan playing both of these matches?
I mean, I don't know, because I think it sounds like St. Clair could be in with the shout. Sounds like he was very close to getting a shot at the World Cup, which would have been huge, just to get him maybe see the field in the third game. And I think because of that, I think if you're Canada, there's you want to get a look at what you have in goal, and this would be a good game for it, especially if you get a result in Curacao. I think Dane St. Clair has proven to be good enough where you should be able to trust him for a game at home where you're going to expect to hold a lot of the ball, which could be a benefit more to St. Clair versus Borjan, because St. Clair's a lot better with his feet than Borjan. I think it's something where the St. Clair shout is not as far it's as far-fetched as you'd think, and I'd almost be inclined to throw him in just if Canada, especially if Canada gets a result, because look, if you're planning for 2026, you can't play him in because in this case, it would be, if say we're assuming Canada gets a win, it wouldn't even be a must-win. You're telling me you can't trust St. Clair in a must-draw game, Nations League game against Honduras, then when are you going to trust him to take the reins? Because the games are only going to get bigger from here on in going forward.
And that's where I was a little, because I believe, again, given the profile, given the age of Dane St. Clair, he's, to me, even, I think there's more of a chance that he could hit a higher ceiling by the time 2026 comes than Crepeau. But in the back of my mind, I think because this is the first window, guys, since the World Cup, a lot of the questions we had will be answered. And some of it is around some of the veterans on this team, and that's including Borjan. So it's in the back of my mind, I could see what Alex is saying here, and maybe Dane St. Clair does get that start against Curacao, and then maybe we throw it back, and that would be a clear indication to me that St. Clair could be someone to go forward. In my mind, my gut tells me probably still, I think Crepeau is still very highly regarded within this camp. Maybe it's a case where the immediate future, it's Borjan until maybe Crepeau comes back from injury, and that still kind of slides Dane down. But I don't know. That's kind of like the negative side, because I do want to see Dane get an opportunity. But from Alex, from what you're saying, then you basically think if he does start a match, it's more than likely going to be the Curacao match, not the Honduras match.
I think it's I think Borjan for sure is going to start today. I think it makes sense. It's a road game. It's CONCACAF. The field might be a bit sloppier. So it's something where you're not going to be you're not worried about having Borjan out there. He's good in those environments. He's always good on the road. He'll save shots. As we saw at the World Cup, concerns with Borjan are more like, how do you deal when you're playing a higher line? How do you deal with when you have to play on the ball a little more? Tactically, first of all, playing Honduras at home, you're going to hold the ball a lot more. Your line's going to be a lot higher. That suits St. Clair immediately. I think because of that, and I think it's also something where I think it's kind of feels like St. Clair's time. I think one thing John Herdman showed, a couple years ago is when it was time for Crepeau, he wasn't shy to turn to Crepeau. He turned to Crepeau, in 2021 during qualifiers. He gave him a shot. Gold Cup, he gave him the reins. Obviously, Borjan wasn't there, but he was comfortable giving Crepeau the reins. There was a camp where Borjan missed out and Crepeau just stepped in seamlessly. I think it's something where, St. Clair is in a similar position to Crepeau, where he's had 1-2 good seasons of strong MLS seasons under his belt. I think it would make a lot of sense on the tactical side, on that side, on 2026 to get him in for a home game, especially it's a home game. Again, you're not asking him to go out there to Curacao and play in a tough environment, heat, etc. You're playing at home, you're a little more comfortable. I just think this would make a lot of sense for a rotation.
So you want to go Dane St. Clair then for the Honduras match? Stick him in?
We could also let the chat vote. I imagine St. Clair might win the vote if we do that, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see what they'd have to say.
All right, guys. We'll move on to the next position. But for the Honduras match, so back home, who do you guys got? You want Dane St. Clair, Borjan? Do you think it's realistic to think potentially St. Clair can get in? Because I definitely get where Alex is coming from. There could be still a lot riding on that match. So I don't know. It's an intriguing one, but let me know. We're already getting a few in. It does seem like it's gonna be Borjan, but we'll come back. We'll give it a chance to breathe. I agree too. I feel like if you do go with Dane St. Clair, you go with him for both matches. I don't know about the two, because I don't know.
I mean, that's fair. That's also fair to consider.
That's the only thing I'm thinking. Like, because like if you get a result away in Curacao, like you're saying, then regardless, even if you lose against Curacao, win, lose, or draw, you basically need a result against Honduras. So it just, I don't know. I'm torn because I would like to see it if they were both friendlies. Then I think maybe I would lean towards this is a good opportunity for Dane, but I don't know. But like I said, this will be telling. Like if Dane starts against Curacao, then man, there's clearly a shift. But I don't think Borjan's time is done yet. It doesn't look like the chat thinks so either. Across the pond does say just tonight, St. Clair I would go with. But we will move on. I'll leave it at Borjan for now. Now we're going to go on to right wing back. And I feel like that is an obvious one. We're going Buchanan, or do you think Lorraine deserves a shout there? Or would you have Buchanan play somewhere else?
Good question. I mean, for whatever reason in my head, I see Buchanan a little more likelier tonight than Tuesday, but then also he's battling fitness, so we might not see him tonight anyways. And then what I said is irrelevant. So I'd say Buchanan for doing the back three, especially with Johnston's return, makes sense just because, I think given Buchanan's fitness is a bit of a question for tonight, I think we see Larea go 90 today, and then with the short turnaround, you get Buchanan getting maybe a look on Tuesday.
Okay, I like that. I think Johnston clearly comes in. There's no debate. Now, if Vitoria, so here's an interesting one, Alex. Vitoria goes all 90 against Curacao in the heat, away days, quick turnaround. And then we play a back three. Does a Hebert, does a Zator, maybe they go with the lefty in the middle? Is it a Kennedy, Cornelius, or because I can't imagine Vitoria's gonna get both. What do you think for that central center back one? That's an interesting one, guys. Let us know central center back for the second match, because I definitely want to hear what Alex has to say here, because there are actually quite a few options. I just have no idea what Herdman may do.
Yeah, in terms of what Herdman would do, that one I'm torn, because he's had a very clear idea of what a central center back is, and it's been Steven Vitoria and Daniel Henry. I don't think we've really seen anyone else play in the center of that back three, so I think it's something where it's interesting to see where who he would see slotting in beyond that. I think Kamal Miller, if it was healthy, would be someone I'd throw in, but I think among these names, I'd go Cornelius if I were to pick. I think he's just the profile of he's strong in the air. And I think that's kind of what we've seen is the biggest criteria for playing in the middle of the back three. It's kind of been someone who can marshal the box, be good in the air. And I think Cornelius fits that profile. Kennedy is taller, yes, but as we've seen, Kennedy just seems to be better on the outside of a back three, taking guys 1v1. And I think maybe in this case, you could see Cornelius in the middle and then Kennedy on the left of him in a back three.
So I know it's exciting. Okay, so your shouts then would be Cornelius in the middle, which I agree, and then you're saying you would probably go Kennedy to the left?
Yeah, I think just for familiarity and then what we've seen from John Herdman. So you're kind of a mix of both.
The two lefties, it's frowned upon in football, and I'm gonna give.
I think it's nonsense, but I don't know. What you think?
I like it. So how close then? How close were you, Alex, to considering like a Hebert or a Zator? Probably it had to be the central position. Were you close, or do you just think just because they're newer faces? I mean, I know Zator's not new, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's just a lot to ask, because I think again it's telling that Vitoria, like he's been in the national team for a while now. Even Daniel Henry's been there for almost a decade. I think it's telling that two of the most experienced players Canada's had on the back line, they've been at the heart of the defense. Like it's always been them. Like guys like Kamal Miller, Scott Kennedy, Alistair Johnston, name whoever else has started a game at center back. Most of them newer faces. They've always come in on the outside of that back three, or paired with someone more experienced. I think if you look at the options, funnily enough, assuming Vitoria is not like good to go for the second game, Cornelius is the most experienced, if I'm not mistaken, because he made his debut back in 2018. Kennedy didn't come in until 2021. Hebert's brand new. Zator, he's pretty much brand new, even though he was there in 2019. I think it's something where Cornelius would just be that most experienced player to fit in that middle. He's also good in the air, like I mentioned. I think it would just make a lot of sense, because I think I'd love to see Hebert, but it just would make more sense to maybe start him on the outside of a back three, because he's a decent runner, he's decent on the ball, and it could be a nice way to ease him in. And I think you just look, okay, Johnston's there, and I just can't see a world where Herdman plays Cornelius in the middle and Hebert on the left, which you could see. Hebert has been playing on the left in St. Louis, but I think that just might get a little too asymmetrical for Herdman.
I 100% agree. I would assume if we ever do see that back three with a lefty in the middle, you're going to get a lefty to the side. Raises the question, and if you guys are still with us in the chat, guys, be sure to drop a like. We're going to be here still for a while. We got a nice big preview for you guys today. I think there will be some special guests dropping by. I'm not 100% sure. Captain Armin will have to let us know. But for right now, it's just Alex and I, and we're just building. And we're building a starting 11 for Honduras, but, we never know. This lineup could, besides Johnston, maybe start for Curacao. But it's just kind of fun to take a look at some of the tactical decisions that go behind this. We did have a question around Kennedy's situation. I do want to throw this back at Alex as well. So for those of you who do not know, Kennedy has been battling with some injuries. He is not playing a bunch right now. He has returned from injury. I am curious to see what he's going to be like. I don't believe he's at his best right now in terms of form, in terms of fitness. But I would imagine, kind of like Alex was talking about, that we would more likely see him at the outside left. I do believe he can play very well there. I think that him and Kamal Miller were neck and neck when it came to who was going to start those type of matches. What would you say Kennedy's situation is right now? Do you think this could be just maybe what he needs to take a step away from club football at the moment? Maybe try to find, obviously, some of that form that made him so good at the second division in the Bundesliga? Or what are you thinking, Alex?
Yeah, I think it's something where this could be what he needs, just because he's had such a rough go. Like, he was in good form to start the year, and then in October he did his shoulder, missed the World Cup. That was obviously tough, because he would have likely featured at the World Cup, maybe even started a game. And then he comes back from the break, etc. He plays, and then he picked up a red card right away, which, you early into a game means you're suspended, so you essentially miss 2 games. Then there was I want to say either a facial or hand injury. I can't remember 100%. It might have been a facial injury. Kept him out for another game. He did recover quickly from it. So it wasn't like major, but again, that's just more, again, especially at the center back position. Every game you miss at the center back position is a chance for you to lose your spot. And when you lose your spot at center back, it can be rough, because coaches tend to love just rolling with their guy. Once you get 2-3 consistent faces, you don't see rotation much. And I think we've seen that with Kennedy. He got like 9 minutes off the bench a couple weeks ago. So I think it's something where his fitness could be in question, but sounds like he's fully healthy and back available. He played again those 9 minutes recently. So would be interested to see how long he'd be able to go. Maybe he comes and starts 60 in a game like this, and then you throw someone in off the bench for him. Maybe Vittoria comes off the bench, because if his legs are tired in this scenario, and you move Cornelius out to the left. But I think Kennedy should be good to go for at least 60, 70, 80, I'd say.
All right, now it's time to go on to the midfield. Let us know, guys, which ones you think should get in here. I'm getting a lot of Mark Anthony K questions, but they're getting pretty shut down by others in the chat as well. For me, I mean, I'll put the, I don't expect, and I don't really want to see K start. I would like to see a midfield 3 of Eustachio, Kone, and Osorio. I think that makes the most sense, especially in this system. I mean, we skipped over Davies as well, but yes, Davies is at left wing back for obvious reasons. But Alex, for that 3-man midfield, am I crazy to think that there could be another option in that midfield, or is the main likelihood to see those 3 that I mentioned?
I think it's going to be those 3. I mean, yeah, K is an interesting one. Just given his form has dipped significantly, and he hasn't always looked fully fit, but then again, he's looked better lately, and he is familiar with BMO Field, and maybe you give him a start in this game just for a little familiarity. But also, I think this Kone, Eustachio, Osorio trio just makes the most sense. They looked really good together at the World Cup in the 5 minutes they got to share the field together. And I think it would just allow Canada the sort of midfield freedom they need in a game like this against Honduras. Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to consider, especially given how Honduras likes to play, which is super vertical, super up and down the field. Maybe being able to control that midfield could go a long way.
Got a bold statement coming in from Armin as well, so I do want to toss this over to you. Jonathan Osorio should start every game at Cam and be captain. Armin's coming in swinging.
I mean,
4-2-3-1 would be the only way that I would see that working, unless you obviously did this. Just kind of, throw Osorio right dead center and kind of shift that a little bit. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of that?
I think
Sharman.
I agree that Osorio, every game where you can get Jonathan Osorio on the field, you get him on. I'm always here for Jonathan Osorio. That's why I see him starting today. I think there's an avenue for him to start. I'd start him. And I mean, in terms of captain, yeah, if a guy like Vitoria's not on the field, if a guy like Boyan's not on the field, he's certainly next up. The only thing that really hurts Osorio is that just you're not benching Eustachio. You're not benching David. I don't think you're benching Laird in this form. Davies, Buchanan. And then all of a sudden in certain matchups, it comes up to Osorio versus Adekugbe, or it comes Osorio versus Larea, and some of those positional needs. Canada just might need another body at fullback, or how are you going to bench someone playing at Galatasaray like Adekugbe? And that, I think, Osorio, if he made that jump to the championship or to Europe that he reportedly could have made this offseason, I think it's something where he has a bit of a, he's a bit more of an edge in that discussion than he does now. But I do agree, whenever you can get him on the field, like in a game like this, I would. But yeah.
Saying Buchanan super sub. He's not giving that up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think in a 3-5-2, like Alex and I were just talking about, I think the Eustachio, Kone, Osorio could be a very complementary little trio there. I don't know about every game. I'm just gonna, for fun, Armin, just to try to build one. Oh yeah, we left out Adekugbe, by the way. I just noticed that we're building this back three. But if we saw a 4-2-3-1, I don't want to change this all up because this is timely. But like, or Davies would probably be up there. Like a 4-2-3-1, you'd have to imagine it would be Osorio as your 10. You'd have Eustachio and Kone in the double pivot. Buchanan right attacking mid. Davies left attacking mid. You'd have the sacrifice would come between Laren and David, which I think that's where like the 10 type of 10 would come.
Hear me out.
You're going down.
You put Davies left back. You put Buchanan on the left. You Laren lead the line. David on the right. Buchanan cuts in. Davies overlaps. David plays in that sort of right role, and then you can get Johnson a bit forward, a bit more.
It looks crazy complicated in terms of if I think that Herman will do it. I don't know. I mean, like right now, just looking at it, it looks nice. It looks nice. And it, like you said, I mean, we've seen Laren as well play at left wing. He did it quite a bit for Besiktas. True. And then you could do this. But we've seen David at the start of this season play right attacking mid for Lille.
He used to play there for Canada, right wing.
Yeah, like I mean, there's something there. I just think, yeah. But you could also just pretend Laren's Adekugbe. You could also go like Adekugbe at left back,
which is also very fair.
And then you have your Buchanan, Davies, Osorio, David, and then of course you have to sacrifice one of the strikers. But given their form, I think if we're going to see Osorio, it's going to be in the system that Alex and I were building, and we'll go back to that because you know what, Armin said in a 10, and this is a 10, sort of. It's a 3-man midfield, but he will be probably the highest on the pitch. So I will go back to that. But that's basically it. So this is our starting 11 for the predicted Honduras game, even though we have no idea what's going to happen in the Curacao game or if players will obviously be available or not. But let's have a little bit of fun with it, Alex, quickly here. So, because I said it could be used for the Curacao match except for Johnston. So if you were going to play a 3-5-2 like this, where you would, again, you're probably having Laird and David as your strikers. Your 3-man midfield will be Eustachio, Kone, Osorio. More than likely, again, it'll be Davies, Buchanan as your wingbacks. How would you set up this back three? I know that you had Vitoria in there with, I think you had Adekugbe, and who else did you have? Who's your third?
It was Vitoria, Cornelius, Adekugbe. Then it was like Buchanan / Larea at right back, depending if Buchanan's fit or if Larea's good, like with Larea would go.
So under the assumption that Vitoria will start, let's just put Vitoria the central center back, just because, humor me. I personally can't see him playing anywhere else. I can't. So let's just say Vitoria is there. So who are you gonna have beside him? And Alistair Johnson is not available. We're talking about Honduras tonight. So do you go Cornelius over Kennedy on the left?
I think Cornelius, you're right in pen. Personally, I think it would be very, very surprised if you don't see him start. So I put Cornelius on the left.
So this makes it interesting then. So now,
'cause
does that
it's
make
like,
does that make your Zator or your Hebert case probably Zator? That looks great.
Yeah, I'd say probably Zator. I think Zator, just given the familiarity, but maybe it's Kyle Hebert time. Maybe we're falling asleep there. Maybe it's Kyle Hebert time. Maybe just given what he's shown for St. Louis, that is a decent enough sample size. But again, yeah, I guess not so much familiar with Canada, whereas Zator does have that extra camp under his belt. But yeah, I think Shirley would have to be up to those two because it's hard to imagine Kennedy playing there. I don't know if I'm trying to think, are there any other players we're maybe sleeping on who could play that role? Like,
I don't think so.
Because, like, if he was healthy, Sam Piet played that role recently for Montreal. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something where you could slot him in.
I don't love Piet there personally, but he could. He has.
So it's like, yeah, I just don't know who could fill in, so to speak. Honestly, maybe you put Larea there. Like, as wild as it is.
Put Richie there. I just think it's intriguing because, like, we had a question already around, is this the reason Zator is in this squad? Obviously, Hebert got brought in for Miller as well, another righty addition to this. So, I mean, I don't know. It's fun to theorize. If you see a 3-5-2, I mean, why not? If you're giving Zator that opportunity, why not start him against Curacao as well? I do really like the look of this. I do like the 4-4-2. I built a little bit more. But in terms of, like, if we were away against Honduras and you wanted that little extra bit in the midfield, I think this is a pretty solid looking team, if you ask me.
Yeah, especially I think if Davies and Buchanan can be unleashed going forward, but also be disciplined defensively, you're gonna cook. I think you're gonna cook.
We've got a lot of people saying no Marc-Anthony Kaye. Osorio is Herman's favorite, though. He is. He's one of the favorites, but I mean, Herman's definitely still shown that he's not afraid to keep Osorio on the bench. Who is hurt at the moment? Waterman, Miller, who else? Was it confirmed that Waterman does have an injury? Because I thought I thought he was just left out.
I think the confirmed injuries were Kamal Miller. He was ruled out. And then, Cavallini sounds like it was... I mean, we have to get an official answer still, but it sounds like it was just some sort of rest,
Yeah.
At least that logically looks like.
Because he just played for Cholos as well, so like people were saying he was injured. I think that was what KJ was maybe. Someone told me that KJ said it, but I didn't actually see the tweet or where it was said. But so sorry, KJ, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I just someone in the chat at the time said that KJ said he was injured, so I don't know if that is true or not. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was very weird that Cavallini maybe wouldn't want to be involved. Do you think it's if he chose not to be involved in the camp? Do you think it's because he's starting to find a little bit of form down in Mexico, and obviously we've seen him struggle at club level for a couple seasons now?
Yeah, I mean, they could also just be a matter of, like, who knows, maybe it's just he had played a lot of minutes lately, he'd slowly been easing his way in, but maybe just after last year, after the World Cup, maybe he just needed a rest. Like, it's something where you really don't know in terms of, until we find out, it's going to be interesting to see why he's ruled out of this camp, but yeah,
that's fair. But yeah, sorry, Alex. Like you were saying that Miller's injured, Crépeau is injured, Hoylet's injured, Piet. I don't think I said Piet.
Piet's injured.
Buchanan's
a maybe. I think if you're gonna use the hockey term, he's a game time decision. It sounds like
game time decision.
He's dealing with the hamstring knock. I mean, it sounds like from what Herdman's been saying that just they're going to be monitoring his fitness. I imagine if he's good to go, they'll probably throw him out in some sort of capacity, but it is something to watch.
Quick fix.
There you go.
Now, to go back to game tonight's match, let's just say Buchanan's not, because we prepare for everything, Alex. Let's just say Buchanan is not ready. Obviously, the clear replacement is Richie, but if Buchanan is not ready, do you think in any way could change the mindset of maybe the starting 11 that could go behind him? Like, for example, like Zator going there, or would you go just back to a straight back four if Buchanan's not available? So yeah, the question is, do you think that if Larea starts over Buchanan, it could change how Herdman wants to set up?
Yes and no. I think Larea as well showed at the World Cup when he and Davies were opposite wingbacks. Like, he's versatile. He can play higher up the field. He can play a little deeper. I think it's something where, if anything, a guy like Larea at right wing back could almost open more of a door to having as a Zator on the field, if that makes sense. Just have that little bit of cover, because Larrea is defensively responsible. I mean, I guess it sounds kind of like I'm counter or like contradicting myself by saying if Buchanan's on, it's almost more of a 4. But it makes sense just that Larrea could cover for Zator if he's on, so it could make sense.
No, I 100% agree. I just kind of thought of that as I was doing it there, because like if Buchanan is available, it screams 4-4-2 to me, because you have Richie, you can jump in, Buchanan right mid, Davies left mid, left back, Adekubi. It all makes perfect sense. But if he's not available, then it makes things a little bit different. Now I almost wonder as well if we could see like, try to stay with my train of thought here, because I think this looks very good on paper. You have Larrea at right wing back. You no need really for that right mid, right back scenario. You have Larrea there. You have Davies at left wing back. Your 3-man midfield. Your 2 strikers look great. But I still struggle on keeping out Adekubi. So like, but yeah, if you did a back 3, you would almost. Yeah, no, never mind. I lost my train of thought. I was going to try to get Adekubi in there somehow, but I was going to maybe push Davies a little further up the pitch, but I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, I mean, Adekubi, it feels tough for him to envision like scenarios just because of Alphonso Davies. Like the dilemma of having 2 very good left backs. I mean, well, one world-class left back and then a very good left back who is starting caliber on your team, but just happens to go up against a very tough player at his position. You
could always put the front 3 type deal, like get rid of. So now, just pretend Osorio's Adekubi. So you drop Ozo, sorry Armin, and now you got your 3-4-3. You could have Adekubi there, and you got Davies kind of like in his 10 role with Larin and David above him. But personally, I don't like that much. I want to see.
Yeah, it's something where if you're playing a Davies 10 role, as we've seen, it worked against say Uruguay, where the pitch is a little more wide open. There was good grass. Like Davies was able to do his thing. I wouldn't do it away against Curacao on a muddy turf, like on a turf field where it's just inviting him to get kicked around, and it's something where his dribbling is going to lose a bit of effectiveness. So yeah, I'd want him out as a wing back for sure, in particular in a game like this.
I agree. And I don't. Everyone who's listening to me talk about Davies, they know I like him as a winger. I like him as. I do like him. I don't mind him as a left back, not for Canada. I just really want to see him as mostly a left mid, left wing back, and then maybe left wing. I don't like him as a striker. I don't like him as a 10. I like him where he, in my eyes, is at his best, and that's out wide. So that makes a lot of sense. But yes, guys, everyone asking, Hoylett is injured. Edwards did not make the team because he's. I'm assuming. I mean, maybe he just didn't make it out of form, but he's got a suspension, so it didn't make sense to bring him anyways. Where else? Waterman returned last week. Yeah, that was an interesting call to leave out Waterman, I thought.
He fit perfectly in this right center back role. We keep talking. That's literally the answer to all of our questions we've been having of who goes there. It's Waterman. If Waterman's there, it's Waterman, hands down, eyes closed.
Yeah, maybe it just shows how Zator's basically time in Europe has treated him so far. I mean, he's just been so good. It's very cool to see a jump from the CPL over to Europe and then to fit in so seamless, and then to do it in a position that I didn't think he was going to play. I genuinely thought he was going to play in the middle of that back 4, and instead he's out wide, and just it's quite the story, and I'm excited for Zator, and I think it'd be very cool if he got an opportunity to start tonight. Although, again, that 4-4-2 I came up with / probably Alex came up with, whatever one it is, just probably a little bit more likely. But get your guys' comments in for prediction, guys. I will put mine in. It's going from the OneSoccer account, so it's not me if I jinx it, but get your guys' predictions for tonight. I'm saying 2-0 for Canada. I don't know what it is. I do think this will be a very difficult match, genuinely, because it's away in CONCACAF. You can never take those matches lightly. I think Canada will be looking for a bit of a bounce back, though, and that's what I'm really hoping for. World Cup did not go according to plan. Alex and I have already talked about that this window does have a lot at stake so far. So I don't know. I'm really hoping for something, but we can also, I think it's fair to say that certain matches away in CONCACAF can be very difficult, and that just even watch that match against Honduras, man. I don't like. I remember trying to sit through the rewatch, and I got like 15 minutes in. I'm like, I did it once. I don't know if I want to do it again.
Yeah, check the weather in Curacao tonight. As long as it's sunny, no thunderstorms or monsoons, please.
Oh man, it was something else. We have had a few questions about Balogun, so we can talk about that. And I think it's fair to talk about because the U.S. are rivals. They're one of the best, if not probably the current best team, because they did do the best at the, hate to say it, but they did do the best at the World Cup. Had an easier group, but regardless, if they pick up a player like Balogun, he's exactly what that team needs. Like it sucks because, like, again, coming from the Canadian perspective, you don't want to see it happen. But when you're looking at that U.S. side, they always have depth. They do have a lot. They have a big pool right now. They don't really have that, in my eyes, that world-class player like we have. And I genuinely think that we probably have 2 or 3 players that are probably better than any of theirs. A little biased, but at least David Davies. But they are missing a striker so badly. And if they get a player like Balogun, who's property of Arsenal, on loan right now and doing basically the same type of work that David is doing for a worse team in Ligue 1, it'd be a big pickup, wouldn't it, Alex?
Yeah, and I think it would certainly shift the balance of power in CONCACAF significantly. I guess just because, again, feels like Mexico's been the top dog for a while, but they've just, the last few years, they've, lost a lot of their top players, and they haven't necessarily had this rush of youth to come in. And I think we've seen that over the last 2 years. Like U.S., every time they've played Mexico, have looked better, have looked younger, have looked fresher, and because they just have all this talent coming through. Their issue, at the World Cup is just they didn't really have a clear number 9. Because I think they're set all over the pitch. I mean, goalkeeper, fullback, center back, midfield, wing. They've got relatively solid players at all positions playing in top 5 leagues. And so if they can just get a number 9 like Balogun to kind of be that missing piece, really allow them to continue their foundation, that's going to be a huge game changer because, it just felt like had they had a player like that at the World Cup or even throughout qualifiers, it would have been a different story. And it's tough for Canada because, I mean, of course, you can't control those sorts of things. It's good for the U.S. I mean, again, they've been investing a lot of time and money into, long term to get something like this. You do have to be a bit frustrated, though, especially if England, what does Canada desperately need on their team? We always talk about, imagine if they had a top-class center back like a Fikayo Tomori, instead England captize him. Canada's a member of the Commonwealth. Why they're supposed to be helping each other. Instead, England takes Tomori, yet they might just leave Balogun to go to the U.S. You do have to admit there's a bit of irony in all that.
I'm hoping Balogun is I'm hoping he wants England and he's almost toying with them right now, because I don't know. I think it would be genuinely a loss for England. We don't know what Balogun's going to turn into right now, and who knows what but you know how England is. If you don't, it's why Tomori's not getting called in. If you don't do it at the Prem level, it's like they don't care. It doesn't matter if you just won a Scudetto.
So weird. If
you're one of the best in Serie A. Like, I was hoping so badly before Tomori's last call up. The fact that he's not really doing it in the Prem right now because he's not in the Prem. It's like, all right, I'll be a mainstay in Serie A and I will play for Canada, instead of staying in the Prem and playing for England. And but Alex, maybe a little teaser to a potential video, because I don't want to speak too much because I don't personally know. It's the grayest area I've seen. Do you believe, given that it's grayer, do you believe that Tomori is still eligible to play for Canada? Do you think that there's a way, whatever it is, like if he has to wait the 3 years from the last cap, or there was that gray area with him being over 21? What is your thought? Because we might have a video coming up, but I want to make sure we do it properly and find the right channels to maybe get a proper answer on this, because I am curious. If you guys don't know, Alex, there was a nice Instagram, I think it was an Instagram picture, right, that was shared with Ugbo and Tomori, and we had a couple cheeky comments coming in from Richie Larea as well. So I don't know if there's something there, but what do you think, Alex? Is it putting it right on the spot? Do you think if he wanted to and there was a pathway, do you think that do you think there is a pathway for him, or do you think it's done? It's closed?
I think it's done and closed. I look at all of the factors. I know it's the wrong answer, but it's something where you just look at it. First, he was eligible. Then in 2019, he made the decision to play for England in I think it was a Euro qualifier, if I'm not mistaken. He gets cap-tied. Okay, the dream is over. And then in 2020, FIFA changed the rules. They're like, look, we're making it so that you have to be if you're under 21, thanks to one and only Munir, from Morocco. He played for Spain. They're like, look, he was under 21. We believe there should be an exception. But then they're like, because this is a new rule, we're going to kind of put a gray zone for guys like Tomori. All of a sudden the dream was back on, and all he had to do was not touch the field once for England between 2019 and 2022. And then in 2021, Gareth Southgate, just in his best attempts to troll Canadians, played Tomori in a European qualifier, then in a World Cup qualifier. I think because of those games, the dream died. But look, it's something where it's FIFA. Maybe there'll be some sort of reworking in the rules. Maybe Tomori could be a unique case because he still has only played 3 games, and the current rule is if you can play 3 games under 2021 and then make a switch. But I think because Tomori's in that gray zone of him being 25 and he was kind of in between that grandfathering of the rule, the only exception, again, I'll open the door here just because I closed it, I'll open the door. The only exception is if FIFA looks at that and be like, look, he's in that gray zone. How is he to know he is still eligible for Canada? But I just, given the press and given that he made those 2 of those appearances for England after the rule change, I think they might be a little less strict. But yeah, what would it be to see the former Chelsea boys, Ugbo and Tomori, play for Canada? My heart aches for a possibility like that.
I know, and I don't want to, because again, I agree with Alex. I genuinely think it's game over. But I mean, if you've ever heard the term grandfathering in, Alex, I know you've heard that term, right? Like, when you grandfather into thing, that creates a literal gray area, and it can be in any source. It could be something just from your local community, like the first, like if you did this for so long, you're paying this much, but now because you're getting grandfathered in, then it's going to go up to this much. Like there is a term for that, and it can be used from the most basic things in life to something like this, and it can make the rules kind of, potentially bend. But again, at the end of the day, I think it's over. But I did think it was funny because whenever this picture went up on EK's Instagram, and look at Richie, but like, what does 80% mean? What do you think that means? Because like I just like 80% of the way, man. And then Tomori's got his crosses, man. Like what? One day we're gonna play together. Like what? Like why are you trolling? Like why? Like what are you doing? Like I don't know. And I want to get a hold of someone. I'm gonna try to, especially if we end up doing like a video or something on it. But I want to try to get a hold of someone who understands this at a bigger level to tell us why or why not it's over, just to really end it. And I think it is closed, but it's just such a funny topic. And if you're Canadian, you see Richie at 80%, and you see Tomori with like the fingers crossed, and you see Ugbo, and it could mean nothing, but it could mean everything, couldn't it, Alex?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's something where, I think, again, when I saw this post, it was just hilarious. So I was like, oh, it's the Chelsea guys getting back together. And I should have maybe figured that, people would see, oh, the 2 Canadians are hanging out together. And it kind of, brought that all together. But I think it's something where, look, I think Tomori, he's a smart guy. I think it's something where he probably looks back at what he's done. He's like, you know what, I'm happy I played for England. I'm happy he made that choice. But also on the other hand, he's like, look, I'm Calgary born. I got friends on the team. I also could have made that decision. And I think that's something where, look, we'll ultimately see him live with that. And hey, maybe if there's an exception made in the future, then it's a whole different discussion. But yeah, again, it's just something that I don't see happening.
Yeah, and that's what Armin's saying in the chat. He says the only way it'd be possible if Tomori makes a case of FIFA that his decision was compelled based on the World Cup being 32 teams, and if he knew that'd be 48. So I'm not sure what all Armin knows as well, or has heard, but I mean,
that one just might be a tough sell to FIFA, because that opens up the door to be like, did he really mean that? Because obviously he jumped at the chance to go to England right away. Like, it's something where, again, like he played for England in 2019. Canada got the co-host of the World Cup in 2018. It wasn't like he could have pretended like, oh, Canada's hosting a World Cup in 2026. Of course, he was trying to make it for 2022. But I think it's something where you looked at the odds. The odds were, of course, in England's favor of being at that 22 World Cup over Canada, but also the odds of him playing at that World Cup should Canada make it were infinitely higher than if it was in England. So it's a bit of a, how do you determine what is what?
It is. I know. It's because I'll go back to the Victoria's age. If you would have waited it out and he would have committed, we'd have got a direct replacement. But yeah, I mean, and at the same time, FIFA changed the rules left, right, and center, so you never know. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. But what do you think it means, though, Alex? I'm genuinely curious because, like, again, I got messaged a bunch being like, "Did you see the post with Tomori?" And I just like, yeah, but like, I mean, the picture itself that doesn't mean anything, but like it's just fun. It's like Balogun's kind of doing it too with the US. And if I was a US fan right now, I'd be having a lot of fun because he is flirting with that entire fan base, and he doesn't care. He's doing it in 4K. He's basically just, I don't know. It's fun to watch because he is allowing the fans to discover that he's in the US. He's clearly there. He's enjoying himself. He's going to games. He's making it public. And he put even a post out being like, "Go where you're happy," or something along those lines. So he's straight up doing it. And then seconds later, our old flame Tomori comes back in, and then you see little comments like, "What do you think this means? Just tell me. What do you think that means?"
I mean, probably just that he misses his brothers and
his boys.
Yeah, good for them to just revel in some of the success I guess they've had since their young days. That's usually what the fingers crossed sign. It's always like prayed for times like this, like a famous rapper once said.
We're gonna up the difficulty a little bit. What about the? Or I just did the same thing with the 80%. Come on, what is it? 80% of the people are there, or you're 80% of the way there?
80%. That one just like for all we know, that's just Toronto man speak, and I can't pretend to know all the Toronto man's lingo. Maybe it's something along the lines of just messing with EK. Maybe it's some inside joke between Richula and EK Ugbo. I feel like it's something where it's less pointed at Tomori and more at Ugbo.
Josh is liking it. Whatever. All right, we're moving on. It's more than like it's 80% not gonna happen, but we're not gonna completely close the door. But yeah, maybe 80% Richie needs to be in the picture. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I would like to know though, because like Alex and I can, read the rules and whatnot, but like you never know. You never know. Different cases happen all the time. So I would like to try to reach out to someone, and if I think that there's something there worth talking about, it'd be cool, or at least just to get an answer being like, there's no chance, man. Like there's no chance. There's no gray area. Tomori is gone, and he probably is. And I've accepted this about 3 different times, and I just keeps coming back. And
I accepted it in 2019. It's something where look, if there was some chance in 2022 he popped up and donned a Canadian shirt, you would have been ecstatic. But it's something where it's like you can't be planning on that. There's a lot of other dual nationals certainly in the sea to go after, and then fish maybe.
It is. So now we're gonna play. So let me know in the chat, guys, if you are. I don't even know the phrase here, because it's a game Alex and I play, or at least I'm trying to make him play it with me every single window. It's the game of numbers. I like to call it, and because again, football is a very interesting sport when it comes to numbers. They have meaning. If you want to ask me what my biggest peeve out there is, it's seeing a striker wear number 2. And you don't
like Wilfred Bonny?
No, well, I was thinking Traore with the one. Oh my, who's the one African country? Who's he play for? Faso, but what's that one country?
Oh, Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso, yes. So the striker, so the right back wears number 9, and the striker wears number 2, and it just itches my skin. I don't know what.
What about Emmanuel Adebayor?
Yeah, Adebayor
back in the day as well.
Didn't he wear number 4? Was that what it was, or did he wear 2?
He wore some ridiculous number at Real Madrid. Like 6 or 4 or something like that. I loved it.
That kind of behavior is unacceptable. It breaks my heart. So, and in the national team, you see it a lot more. Like Gavi wears number 9. Again, just itches me. Where I'm always like, all right, I like these numbers. Now let's switch them. Let's make this make sense. Help me help you wear a number that's not ridiculous. So what we're gonna do, guys?
Josh, my question is, what was your number then? If you're a strong number guy, like when the kit person for back when you played back in the day, heard your tidy player, what would Josh do in terms of maybe you got first choice, you grabbed the kit out of the bin? What was your go-to number or numbers?
Well, my go-to number, because I mainly played as a winger, striker, 10, and there's a universal number, so I always pick number 10.
Okay.
You know what? There's strikers that are 10, wingers that are 10, cams that are 10. 10 is a beautiful number, so I didn't take 9 for that reason, because I didn't want to be a 10 wearing 9. I didn't want to be a winger wearing 9. When I played at the college level, I wore 16. I wore 16 quite a bit because of Aguero. I always really liked him, and he wore 16 when he was at City, so I wore that quite a bit when the numbers when I didn't get when I didn't get 10, I wore 16. And Aguero didn't get 10, so he wore 16. Fun fact. And then he grabbed 10 later in life when Edin Dzeko left. But yeah, so I was a 16 kind of guy. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, this one's a fun one because I grew up. I was mostly a striker when I was younger, so I always had 9. Then as I got older, I kind of dropped deeper, so I actually had 10 for a bit as well. But my just go-to number otherwise was 15. And this one's I love it's so random. People might be like, oh, is it because of Pogba in France or something like that? No, 15 was because when I was younger, I just loved Danny Heatley of the Ottawa Senators of all people. So I think that's just hilarious. I still rock 15 today when I can. Just because I like the versatility of the number. You can kind of wear it all over the pitch. Whereas, like, I love 10, but there's some games where you're playing 10 and you feel great. And then there's some games where you're like playing right back, you're playing elsewhere in the field. It feels a bit dirty having it on your back.
No, that's fair. Yeah, you can't be in goal with number 10. You can't be center back with number 10. It's frowned upon. But yeah, 15 and 07. I'm a big Sens fan, so I did like Danny Heatley myself, but I did not wear his number. But we're gonna play a little quick game today, and if you guys want to jump in, you can. And ever since I'd say the last couple windows, at least from the World Cup, maybe the time before that, Alex and I just try to pick what numbers we think that the players will wear with no prior information. Really, I sent my list to you, Alex. I liked yours a lot more, but then there's been a couple changes, at least with Hebert coming in. So we're just going to go down the list very quickly to see if we agree on it. If you guys have any opinions on what numbers you think the players will wear, if you care, if you don't, it's no problem. Again, number snob. That's what I was looking to say. I'm a big number snob, so I need these players to kind of be somewhat of what I'm picturing here. But we have Kenneth with one final thing before we go. 80% maybe. Tamori personally told Richie that he was 80% for Canada is my theory. I like that theory. There's nothing wrong with that. But all right, so let's rapid fire this, Alex. I think we're pretty much on the same page now. So Boriem 18, obviously, nothing there.
I agree.
St. Clair number 1.
Yeah, I'd agree as well.
So I originally said McGill 16 because he would take Crépeau's 16, but we have seen it where it's changed before, and especially with Ugbo not being there. You said McGill 12. I like that a lot more. Are you still sticking with that?
Yeah, I had McGill 12 just because I feel like that's the standard backup goalkeeper number, and especially with no Ugbo there, it could just make sense to give him like a 12 and free up a number like a 16 for one of the center backs.
I 100% agree, and that's why I did like yours more. So Vittoria wears 5, Atakubi is 3, Larea is 22. We have Johnston at 2. So I believe we both gave Cornelius 15, right? And I was, because Kone is interesting because Kone's worn 6, he's worn 8, he's worn 13, and he's worn 15. He wore 15 at the World Cup. So do you think that's but I can't really see Cornelius wearing 6. So I gave Cornelius 15. I think you did too, right?
Yeah, I think it's something where logically I guess Laturi would get 6 from Piet, and then I think Kone would just take the 8 now if that's still available. That's
what I was thinking, but I'm surprised he gave it up for Fraser at the World Cup. So that's why I was a little confused.
Well, Fraser has seniority, right? So I bet you that's probably the thing we forget about. Like, you have to almost go seniority. I imagine you're guys who are either been on the team the longest, Davies wants 19, David takes 20. Guys like Vittoria, Daniil Henry, they always kind of had their numbers, and I think that also is something to consider.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I would assume if Kone had his choice, I thought he would pick 8. So I agree. So Cornelius kind of steps in, who doesn't really have a number. He's worn plenty of different numbers. So we gave him 15. Kennedy's usually 23. Would Hebert just come in and take 4, just from Miller?
Yeah, I guess that would be the logical one, especially a late addition to camp. Unless someone steps up, actually, that maybe Cornelius gets 4, just because he has the seniority out of all of them, and he's always had weird numbers.
Cornelius wore 4 for Canada during the Olympic qualifying.
Yeah,
or did he wear 13? I can't remember now.
I thought he wore 4 or something.
I thought he wore 4 as well.
Then maybe Hebert can slot in, take that 23.
Or isn't Kennedy 23 though?
Or actually Hebert. Oh, it's too bad that Larea is 22. Hebert wears 22 at St. Louis, so 23 could make sense for Hebert because it's similar.
But 2 + 2 is 4. So I mean, we're going simple there. But across, Cornelius may want 4. I'd see it. It gets confusing because I agree, Cornelius. I think just because I don't know, I'm torn now.
I'd say Cornelius gets the 4. I think we could Like he'd probably get the choice, and I'd say like it makes sense.
I think so too.
He's probably going to play a lot more too, right? So it's like it might make sense for him to be out there rocking 4.
I like it. I like it. He doesn't have a number, so Cornelius takes 4. Scott Kennedy gets his 23. Hebert gets probably then 15 or 16, and Zator will get the other one.
Yeah, I guess it would be just between the two, 15 or 16. Maybe we'd have to find out what was Kyle Hebert's old college number. Maybe for all we know, where
21.
Oh, 21. Maybe wouldn't that one be free? Because Azoria would probably take the 10.
Well, I guess you gave 21 to Brim.
Yeah, but I feel like Brim could. I guess he has the seniority, so I don't know what he'd pick.
Yeah, I think Zator 15 because it's it's kind of like Henry's number, Zator, and then Hebert kind of takes 16. That could be Waterman's number. That's what I don't know. Do you think so? 15 or 16 with one of the two center backs?
Yeah, I think I can see that.
And then it goes 13 with Hutch, 10 Osorio, 14 K, 7 Eustachio, 8 Kone, 6 Laturi, 17 Laren, 20 David, 19 Davies, 11 Buchanan, and then 21 would go to Brim and 9 to Akinola. Look at that. That was time well spent, wasn't it, Alex?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All the number nerds are gonna love us, and all the other people are gonna hate us.
We try to make it quick, but yes, I'm definitely a numbers snob. That is for sure. But all right, we'll end that because But hey, we got some people who cared. Like we got Hebert wearing 12.
Shout out Pierre and across the pond.
Across the pond. They care. They care about what numbers. It matters because it can just it's a pet peeve. A lot of football fans will understand that. But we'll go back over to the starting 11, and we will maybe tamper with that a little bit for the Curacao match. But if you guys are still with us, we're almost 2 hours into this stream. Be sure to drop a like, guys. Get your guys' predictions in. Anything you guys want us to talk about. We've went on a little tangent here between the Tamori and then all the way over to the numbers, but we will head back to the Curacao match tonight, which is going to be fun. Maybe we'll take a look at Curaçao's actual.
Yeah. So they got a fascinating squad.
Yeah, I took a look at when it dropped, but I haven't actually given it much of a look since then. But maybe we'll take a look at it. And did I ask you? Yeah. So I did ask you. So if Buchanan doesn't start tonight, Alex, were you thinking that this could be the starting 11? I got Tamori in there.
That's a little.
Or do you think it's unlikely that Zator gets to start?
I just think I think in this scenario, I think we're more likely to see Adekubi in back four with Larea, Vittoria, Cornelius, Adekubi. I just think in that case, and then we'd maybe see Osorio shift out wide, or because if this Buchanan would be injured, so that's probably what I would see. Based on familiarity. Again, I'd love to see Zator, but I'd expect we see a lot more veterans on a road day in CONCACAF.
I do agree. And I want to show everyone what that would look like, because that's what Alex was I think he kind of had. So we had Larea, which would then just go in at right back. You'd have your back four is Vittoria, Cornelius, Adekubi, and then Davies, Eustachio, Kone, and then Osorio would go out wide. This was Alex was building a little bit earlier. And then Laren and David up front. It's a good looking starting 11. I mean, I
like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like it too. I like the question marks around Cornelius too, because a lot of fans I think are thinking that, and I don't think it'd be crazy to see just in terms of what John Harmer does, but I'm really banking and hoping that we see Cornelius. I think that his form speaks for itself. I really think he was slotted in well. The fact that Miller's not here, but that is kind of the starting 11 that we're kind of picturing. And like I said, if Buchanan is fit, then you can even potentially swap him in for Osorio. But right now, Armin gets his wish. But let's bring up the squad for Curacao to show our viewers here kind of what it looks like, and if we have like any knowledge on any of the players. I'm sure some of these faces will be kind of familiar, but anyone right off the bat stick out for you? I'm pretty sure, actually, he played for the Netherlands. He did. He played in China, too. I recognize.
He's an interesting one.
Yeah.
He's got a couple goals this year in the Eredivisie, which, again, solid level.
So this is his. This would be his first cap. Then,
Yeah, he's
for Curacao.
uncapped.
Because I know he's from Serbia, so he's eligible to play for Serbia. He's eligible to play for the Netherlands, and I guess he's obviously eligible to play for Curacao. So I remember when he went to China. So that's an interesting player that they picked up. Anita as well, another old Premier League player. But yeah, what the main player who sticks out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be Leandro Bacuna, and just the Bacuna brothers together. I jumbled them in just because they've kind of got a good mix of experience. Like, Bacuna is one of the most capped players on the team. He plays for Watford, East Malcone, so very good level. He's always done well for Curacao. He's going to wear the 10 shirt. He's going to be a main source of just ball playing, leadership, everything in the middle of the park for Curacao. And based on how they want to play, ever since they made the coaching change, it looks like it's going to be 4-3-3, up tempo, a lot of passing, a lot of midfield pressures, just trying to control the middle of the park. I think if you're looking at that, it starts and ends with Leandro Bacuna, and in particular his brother as well, Juninho Bacuna of Birmingham City, also in the championship alongside him, just kind of trying to really take control of the middle. Because from what I saw of Curacao, this new system really wants to dominate the middle off and on the ball, and I think those two in particular will be key to those efforts.
Yeah, I agree. Those are kind of the mainstays in that midfield. There's a lot of interesting players on this team, though. The wide range. I mean, we got players playing in Australia. I'm not sure where this one is. Iraq, Israel, Bulgaria,
Romania.
Zvikovic definitely is one now that I'm intrigued about, just because I know a little bit about this player. So it's cool to see him get a call up to Curacao. He is a tricky player. Doesn't have the best goal scoring record, but he definitely, I mean, for a club like Curacao, this could be a good little addition for them as well. So if they line up in the 4-3-3, then Alex, and you look at how Canada's going to kind of play, are you worried at all with that midfield? The fact that Canada may or may not play with a 4-4-2 with the two-man midfield, or do you think that you would trust this Canadian side to be able to kind of get it done, just given the quality of Canada, maybe against a team like Curacao?
I think it would make sense to go 3. I just feel like it's something where going 2 against Curacao, especially if you want, say, you're playing a 4-4-2 and Davies is going to be asked to do a lot going forward, etc. It might just, you don't want to get stretched in the midfield. I think it's something where you could get, you would look, it's Curacao, it's not Croatia. We played the likes of Croatia, Belgium, etc. It's something where Croatia, I feel like, again, they're technically sound and they could surprise. Plus, this is their home field, so they're going to be familiar with the surface and just have that sort of edge. It is something where I'm watching, especially, again, I was just surprised. Like, again, there's not much data for me to go off of, just because they changed their manager in August. They played 2 official games, 2 unofficial games, so only the official games were logged in terms of data. But I just find it fascinating that they went and played Indonesia, and like some of the stats, like their possession stats, went way up. Their midfield, like they won like 3 times more balls in midfield than they did in like the 4 previous games before that. So like those sorts of tweaks make me feel that Curacao is going to try to dominate the middle. And I just think if you're Canada, you want to go back and give back, because if that's going to be Curaçao's strength, you want to limit their strength. And if you can do that and then free up the likes of Davies, David, Laren to get going in transition, then you're going to do well. But if you lose the midfield battle, all of a sudden that forces you to be a little sharper defensively, to be able to go vertically to your forwards. And Canada hasn't always shown shown that.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, I was just trying to look to see if I had anything on Twitter. Alex, you're a Twitter expert. Is there any interesting, like, just for like, I was just trying to find something to put up on the stream. Is there anything when you want to find like nice Canadian national team like content, you just put in like CanMNT Any accounts that you want to kind of like drift through just for a little background for the viewers here, or because you're the Twitter expert, you need to help me out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the hashtags are always a good way to go. I mean, just in terms of accounts, I haven't scrolled through much in the last 2 hours since we've been on stream. So for all we know, things have completely changed. And maybe a fun one to look at now, just on the other side, there's this Curacao account that keeps tagging me and stuff. Apparently, they've given out some good information, including that center back. He tagged me in it. Center back Daryl Lackman, who plays in Australia, has been ruled out. So that's just a good bit of info for Canada. Couch Ultras is a great account. That's funny that they popped up early there. But yeah.
Interesting. I'll just say this picture right here of Cornelius, though. Is this the World Cup picture?
Looks like it. Yeah.
Okay.
25.
Okay, I was gonna say. Like I said, a little sneak peek to the numbers tonight.
No context, CanMNT. That's a funny one.
That's a good account. That's a good account. Oh, that's funny. I will try to find that other account for you quickly, but just gonna scroll through this to see if there's anything. Oh, there's a guy.
I recognize that mug.
There's a guy. Is this the one?
Yeah, this is the Curacao one.
All right, let's take a look. Let's go through a couple comments for you guys as well. What time tonight will the roster usually drops? What, an hour ish before?
I think 90 minutes is when it gets filed to CONCACAF, and then from there it depends when Canada releases it, or if CONCACAF leaks it out, or if anyone on site. So usually I'd say never past 8:10 Eastern time. Of course, the game's at 9 Eastern time, but we could get lucky, get as early as 7:30, 7:45.
Beautiful. You guys did great. Enjoyed all the info on the show. Appreciate it. Did a nice long stream. It's match day. It's always a fun day. And when we scroll through a little bit of Twitter here, we'll go through the CanMNT just tweets, see if anything fun happens there. We'll go through Curacao as well. But here's always a fun question, because when you're a national team fan, dual nationals is just like topic that gets you going. I guess, Alex, what's a couple talented dual nationals that you, maybe like in the immediate future, like the next year or so, that you think Canada could potentially look to bring in? Anyone that kind of pops for you at the moment? I mean, McGill came out of absolutely nowhere. We haven't touched on Tom McGill too much, but I just don't think at this time, being the third string keeper, I doubt we're going to see him anyways. And it's, the third string keeper, just kind of hard to talk too much about without obviously being able to see him too much. But the fact that he's playing for Brighton right now and is in that system, I think he's a third string keeper there as well. So it's an exciting dual national and maybe one for the future. But anyone else in the immediate future that you think could potentially be a target for John Hurban?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to be interesting to see. I think Daniel Jebison is one where, again, at striker, it just feels like if he can go on a run and Canada can, like, it sounds like he's been close to committing to Canada in the past. So if he can go on a run of form and really work his way in, I think Jebison, of course, would be one. I think otherwise, of course, a bit more of a familiar face. A guy like Luca Koleosho, again, it's a bit of a wild card just because he's eligible for like 4 countries, I guess. Canada, Italy, US, Nigeria. But he's been called into Canada camps, and I think if he gets called in more regularly to La Liga, Canada will have more of a reason to pounce on him. I mean, if not, really, the interesting thing for Canada now in the next year is that there's going to be a bunch of dual nationals that pop up that we have no idea about. Because I think for the most part, most of them are playing in these academy systems at top European teams. And what that means is these guys come out of nowhere. Like, for all we know, all of a sudden, maybe towards the end of the year, they'll start playing as a team looks for the future. And all of a sudden, we'll start seeing some names. So because of that, it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys come out from. Like, think of how Jebison popped on the radar a couple of years ago. He got a call up late in the season, scored, and all of a sudden, like, oh, Canadian scoring in the Premier League. Theo Corbiano did this game. It's important to remember he's played a Premier League match with Wolves. It feels like it's been a while ago since that happened. So maybe we'll see who will be the next one. I mean, throwing one off the top of my head, one that I'd be interested to see is a Chituro Odunze. It's another goalkeeper, so a position of strength for Canada, but I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's like 6'5", came through the Whitecaps Academy, plays in the Leicester system. He's still super young, like 19, 20, plays for Leicester too. So when we're given his frame, and he's also US eligible and has played for them at the youth levels, but the US is also deep. at goal, in goal, especially in terms of young options. Maybe he makes a jump up, and all of a sudden, similar to McGill, you're looking at a guy like an Ndunze or something like that, or again, lots of younger names that we've seen for the past, like a Jesse Costa at Wolfsburg. If he can emerge there and play some minutes, maybe you're looking at a Jesse Costa all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a name that I haven't heard in a while though. Okay, that was I did a video on a couple up and coming dual nationals, and he was on that list. That was a while ago when I did that one. But I saw a couple in the chat. What are your thoughts right now on Luka Kolyosho? Because I think that's a really cool case to kind of take a look at now. Eligible for, I believe there's 4, right? There's US, Italy, Canada, and was Nigeria the other one?
Yeah, Nigeria.
So he's played for the U15s for the US, and he just got called up for the U19s with Italy. He doesn't feature often with Espanyol, like the main squad. But obviously he got called up to a camp with Canada, now going to the U19s with Italy. What is your thoughts right now around Kolyosho? Do you think that this is one where you just kind of let it burn right now because he's got options? He's still very, very young, very raw talent. Or is this one where you're now a little bit nervous that he kind of opened the door to other nations? So what's the situation there, Alex?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's something where I'm not entirely worried, just because again, it's more of Canada not having these sorts of youth camps that again I think are much needed and would help, just so you can call it a guy like Kolyosho, allow him to play at the younger level. I think it's been telling that over the last year or two, the rare opportunities that Canada's had camps, guys like Jesse Costa, who's also a dual national, has come in and gotten a chance to play for Canada, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I love, you can tell he loved it and he expressed that. I think it's just unfortunate for Canada that they're not able to consistently have these camps to give opportunities to guys like Kolyosho, but I think it's something where you look at the options he's going up against. Canada should have an edge as long as once he makes that first team debut. Like the US is relatively deep on the wing. I think Nigeria's loaded up front in terms of just options. You go from Osimhen to Mofi, and then you go down the list to pass some of the other names there. You got Chukwueze, and you could go hours for Nigeria. Italy, for me, feels like the real threat, just because they need youth. They need to inject some youth into that squad and really freshen them up for the future. Finally making it back to the World Cup, etc. But I think it's something where Canada does need some wingers. So as soon as Kolyosho breaks through at that first team level, he's someone where you give him a look, you give him a call, and try to bring him in for the future. And I think given that he's already given Canada a look, it's something where you'd be at least comfortable you'd be confident that you could sway his mind.
I agree, and I think his is wide open. Dual nationals, it's just such a fun topic. One that interests me, just having these connections to multiple different countries and how to obviously commit to one. It's very difficult to do, and we wish Luka the best and hope he picks the path that he thinks that is best for him. But I know that we kind of skipped over Tom McGill a little bit, but there's a couple questions here that kind of tie into this, and I know Alex will be one that you're going to be familiar with. But so Hassal, now this is a keeper who I thought was going to maybe kind of come into his own, starting for the Whitecaps last season. He obviously has now become the backup at Vancouver. He got called in to the Bahrain camp. He's now missed out. There's injuries right now with the depth chart, or the depth in the keeper position for Canada. And then a young dual nat like Tom McGill comes in, and Hassal's kind of casted to the side. So how worried should Hassal be going forward, just in terms of, when he's going to find an opportunity to become a consistent starter? Maybe it's not going to be at the Whitecaps. He may have to look elsewhere. Is he happy being a backup, playing in maybe the cup competitions? And how far is he maybe out now from the national team?
Yeah, in terms of Hassal, it's a bit tough, I guess, because it just felt like by now he would have gotten the role, especially after Max Crepeau left and he stepped in. But it's also one where he's just been injuries, etc., just bad timing. Cody Cropper came in and ended up being the guy, but then as we saw statistically, maybe shouldn't have been the guy. Maybe Hassal should have got a longer look, but then because Cropper's advanced metrics were so poor last year, they ended up bringing Yohi Takaoka to replace Cropper, and Yohi Takaoka has actually been statistically very strong. It's something where Hassal, he might have to look elsewhere. The good news is there's a few factors playing in his favor, and the fact he's still only 23, which, it could be old if you're a forward or something like that. For a goalkeeper, you're basically 17 when you're, maybe more like 18, 19 if you're 23. Like, you're so young. I think it's important to remember Crepeau didn't really get his breakthrough with the Whitecaps at the MLS level till he was 25. Dane Sinclair became a full-time starter last year at 24, 25. Like, Hasal is still a good year or two away from a lot of these keepers really grabbing roles and then becoming the players we know today. And I think that's something where maybe this year, maybe he heads out on loan. Maybe he goes out and gets those minutes and then comes back and either gets rolled with the Whitecaps elsewhere, maybe Europe, just because given his frame, there has been some smoke around him with Europe. And maybe it could make sense for him to go get some minutes in Europe. But he's someone where, given he's actually played a lot of games already for someone of his age at that position, I think because of that, we're still a year or two away from, being okay. You could then get a role like that and then run with it the same way Crepeau did. Like, Crepeau was a highly rated prospect when he was like 16, got called up to Canada camps, was in the Montreal system for a long time, just never got minutes. He had to go to Ottawa Fury to get minutes, and then the Whitecaps gave him a punt. The rest is history. Maybe that's what happens with Hasal. Maybe it's elsewhere in the Whitecaps. Maybe a team gives him a punt, and then the rest will be history.
And I know some of the people in the chat be like, the third string keeper. Some people think it's a weird that you bring 3 keepers, but I'm not gonna get into all that. But I do think the goalkeeping position for Canada going forward is definitely one to keep an eye on. As we talked about a little bit earlier in the stream, given the fact that Borjan is getting older, that at some point, I would assume relatively soon, we would have to make a decision on what the future is going to look like between the sticks, whether it's Crepeau, St. Clair, and how long you give Borjan. But before we go, Alex...
Well, actually, I'd hop in just to say,
ahead.
I think look at the U.S. as a parallel of why it's important, because they had Tim Howard for a long time. He was the guy. Then he, kind of like Borjan, he aged out, and then they looked elsewhere. And they were in a unique situation where they had a bunch of guys playing in MLS. Like Zach Steffen at the time was playing for the Crew, Sean Johnson, there's a bunch of others. And then because they had to look at those guys, and then Turner ends up winning the job out of them, all of them, because he late blooms and goes to Europe. It's going to be the same thing with Borjan. Canada's in a similar situation where all of their keepers are all either at a similar level in MLS, so it's easier to compare them, like Crepeau, St. Clair, Hasal, Sirois, Pantemis, take your pick between all of them. They're all in MLS. But you also got guys like McGill. Maybe you can throw in a Dunze into that mix. Guys playing in Europe who are options. And I think what's exciting is you can get as many looks at these guys, like the way you are with McGill, maybe with the Sirois, Hasal, St. Clair. For all we know, one of them or two of them pops off and goes to the same way Turner popped off and went to an Arsenal out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, ahead of 2026, you've got a whole new option. At least you sitting there saying, okay, we had a look at him. We know what we're getting. So it is important to plan a contingency plan, especially at that third goalkeeper position. It might seem unimportant now, but the third goalkeeper today could easily be the starter in 2 years' time.
And that's why I love the fact that they went out and just, out of absolutely no one, blew everybody away, grabs a dual nat like that, Tom McGill, who's in the Brighton system. I don't think that's anything light. I think that took some work from Herdman and company to get that done. And it's exciting. Yes, maybe he's not going to feature for this window or the next couple, but who knows what this kid's going to potentially turn into. Obviously, again, when you're going up against a nation like England, he probably knows that it's a long road at the age of 22 to maybe get into that England fold. And there's an opportunity to feature with Canada at a World Cup 2026 just around the corner. And also, what I'm leading into, the last little thing we're going to do on the stream today, guys, and hopefully you can help us out with it. Our Copa America squad. Our way too early for fun Copa America squad. Look at the graph Josh has. It's updated to the roster, the 23-man or 24-man roster for the March Nations League. So Alex and chat, and again, one last time, guys, if you're still with us and you haven't dropped a like, please do so. And let us know again, anything that you wanted us to talk about, we'll do it. But our last thing we're going to do today on the stream is build our way too early potential 23 or 24, whatever Alex and I decide to do, Copa America squad, taking into obviously a lot of what ifs. What if Laturi becomes an absolute beast? What if Abzi gets it? You know what I mean? Like we're gonna theorize around some of the potential growth of these players, and we're gonna build it. But first things first, what is the number we want to decide on? Because I heard something with FIFA that it's gonna go down, right? It's not gonna stay.
Yeah, I think they want to do 23 going forward, which again I think is whatever. I'd like to see 25, 26. 25 could be a perfect number, maybe long term. That's not quite 26, but not quite 23. But let's do 23 for fun.
23 for fun.
Make some harder decisions.
It's cutthroat. It's cutthroat. So let us know in the chat, guys, who your 3 keepers would be. Potential keepers for the 2024 Copa America. And I'm going to ask the tough question right away. So is Borjan going to be there?
That feels tough because maybe he's in the squad, but I just feel like in 12 or I guess it would be 15, 16 months time, you look at the potential of St. Clair. You look at Crepeau's going to have a full year of being back and doing his thing. Maybe Tom McGill ends up making a move to like a championship club. Maybe Sirois takes over or Pantemis. Like there's so many variables, and especially I think importantly, there's a lot of guys close to breaking out. And you look at Borjan's age, and Red Star struggled a bit, at least in Europe in recent years. Because I remember in 2019, I don't know if you remember, there's a huge debate at the time, Crepeau versus Borjan, because Crepeau was one of the best goalies in MLS with the Whitecaps in 2019. But then I remember I asked John Urban, he was like, well, look, I love what Crepeau is doing, but Borjan at the time was playing for Red Star. They had Liverpool, PSG in their group. Borjan looked great against the likes of Neymar and Salah. And he's like, look, Crepeau just hasn't faced a Neymar, a Salah, the way Borjan is in Europe. Well, with Red Star struggling in Europe, that excuse kind of goes away. And as we've seen with the Serbian league, it's not like MLS seems to be an overall higher quality. So I think because of that, it opens the door for the likes of St. Clair, Crepeau, which I think we certainly would probably have to put those two in. And then the question would be, is it a Borjan or is it a McKill that joins those two?
I guess someone across the pond saying, is that Borjan's last go? I don't know. I'm torn. Do we do it a little bolder? Do we just leave Borjan out just to see what maybe it would look like in a couple year or a year and a bit's time down the road?
I mean, I guess there's two ways of looking at it. I think logically, it's going to be Crepeau, St. Clair, Borjan. And I think at the very least, Borjan's going to be the third goalkeeper. I think it's something where, look, you see that with third goalkeeper. It's not unnatural. Like, look at France, for example. They had no logical reason to have Steve Mandanda as their third goalkeeper, but he was a leader of their team. Like, it's something where that just you see that naturally at the third goalkeeper position. It's nice because it kind of gives you a free leader, so to speak. It's not like another position where it's your backup right back. You might need your backup right back to play, whereas your third goalkeeper mathematically never sees the field. So I think because of that, I think Borjan could slot in there in the very least.
All right, it's fair. I agree because there are definitely two ways of looking at it. There's like your Steve Mandanda who just doesn't want to kind of let the national team go yet, but then you have like Hugo Lloris who like when you're the main number one starter and you just kind of hang up the boots. But yeah, I'm torn, but. Third string keeper. I don't think Borjan will retire, so he probably won't. I like it. Well, so we'll go those three, just as a different order than what it used to be. And would you say Crepeau is going to be the main man? You think at that time, depending on how he comes back from his injury?
I'd say if we let's project St. Clair just because he'll have more time to have played and maybe he gets a move to Europe because it just feels like he attracted that interest last year, very peripheral interest. It's important to note, but. Because of that, I'd say if I'm projecting in a year time, and again, that's not a shot to Crepeau because I think, say if he wasn't injured, he probably would be ahead. It's just he's coming back from a tough leg break.
Yeah,
it's something where we'll project St. Clair with Crepeau as the backup.
No, I agree, and no one knows. I mean, no one knows how difficult it is to come back from injuries like that. That was a nasty leg break. I've unfortunately had to come back from several different injuries in my life, including a leg break. It is not easy, but a lot of the times. Those are easier to come back with than, say, like a knee injury, shoulder injury, especially for a keeper. But, yeah, I hope Crepeau will return to exactly how he was beforehand. Obviously, left in an MLS final where he won the cup. But I like that. So, Crepeau, Borjan. Going on to right back, I don't think I'm seeing much changing in the next 15 months. Johnston, Larea, any shout for someone else?
Yeah, I just think Johnston, I mean, he's going to be playing a lot of games for Canada going forward, and then I think Larea behind him. I just don't see anyone emerging quick enough over the next that time to threaten him. I think the more interesting discussion would be more at left back than at right back.
A left back and right back. All right, so at left back we have Atakubi. Anybody else to? And because remember we're trying to get to 23, so we might need to sacrifice. Like we have, Hutch. We can already assume that it's not going to be there, so like we could open up a position and then we need a minus because right now we're at 24, I believe. I mean, this is the lineup today, but is there a left back that you think could take one of those midfielder positions? or like a left mid, or do you want to keep it just at Kubi for now?
I'd say keep it at Kubi for now. We can revisit. I think it's something where I think Canada's going to need a little more in midfield, a little more at the back, etc. Right? Like it's something where because then you have Davies who could play left back. You have Larea. I think it's something where Herdman might prefer to look elsewhere.
I agree. But now look at the depth we have. So are we gonna keep Vittoria, or do you think his time is probably done by then?
That's the tough question, because I think who knows? He's showing no signs of slowing down. I thought after he left.
He's not, but he's 36 now, and you know what? Just to make this, we kept 40 in, so to make this one a little bit more interesting.
Yeah,
and
let's cut it. I'd say let's do it.
Yeah.
I agree. It's something we're projecting in a year time, especially given that he signed for Chavez relatively last minute, and I don't know how long term of a deal he's got going on there. Like I think it's something where it's 16 months. That's a lot of time for a guy like Hebert to build up a lot of minutes. It's a lot of time for Waterman to continue playing and then maybe go to Europe like he had interest of doing. So
who do you want to toss in as a starter on the right hand side?
Let's throw in Waterman.
You want to throw in Joel?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll put my boy in there. No problem. Just trying to keep my list in order because I do use this quite a bit. So ignore my constant stop and starts. But all right, so we got Joel Waterman kind of coming in, the guy who's not even in camp right now. So it's a very, very interesting shout to go. And are you gonna? I'm sticking with Cornelius. Do you agree? I mean, I think the guy's just gonna get better over the next 15 months.
I think Loki, like not the hot take, but I'd say I'd go group of 4. I'd just say Waterman, Cornelius, Kennedy, Miller. Bring your best 4 center backs, even if it means only bringing like a 1 righty, because it's just projecting Victoria's age, projecting Daniil Henry's injury struggles. I guess Kyle Hebert's one who could make this discussion interesting. Same with Dominic Zator, but we could revisit them. I'd say keep them on the sideline, and if we have an extra spot, then we can bring in a Hebert or a Zator. But I'd say if we're just starting with 4, go Waterman, Cornelius, Kennedy, Miller, and maybe one of them shifts over to the right.
All right. So what about Krifa? Yeah, we did get a shout in the any interest there? Or just maybe a little too soon.
I'd love to see Krifa Yao. I just see a bigger pathway for Hebert, if that makes sense. Because I think Yao, again, more upside, younger, great. He's going to be a great player. But if we're projecting over a year, I just think the fact that Hebert could play 30, 40, 50 games between now and the Copa America on a good St. Louis side, whereas we don't know if Yao could play 5 minutes, if he could play 30 on the Whitecaps, especially with how they can be with center backs. I think it's something where I'd project Hebert ahead of him for now over 16 months. Like if we're talking 2026, I'd probably project Yao over Hebert, but if we're talking the next 16 months, I'd go Hebert.
I think that's fair. Yao's still got a lot to prove, and I think he'd probably have to be doing it with the Whitecaps. Not that he can't do it this season, but we would have to bank that he's probably going to find a way to become a starter and become that type of player, which Hebert's obviously showing with a fantastic story, I reiterate, with St. Louis. Midfield 5.
Actually, Josh, one tweak, I guess. Maybe throw Miller ahead of Waterman on the center back depth just for now, just because it feels like unfair to have Miller on the bench.
Going for the lefties. There we go. We're doing Spain. Torres and Laporte.
There you go.
All right, I like it. All right, midfield 5. Kone, Osorio, K, Eustachio, Laturi. Is K still there?
I don't think.
We don't have Piet either.
Yeah, true. I feel like Kone and Eustachio are the only certainties I have there, because there's just so many. And Osorio. I think those 3 we can pen in. I think K is just a wild card because his forms, we don't know what it's going to look like in a year. It just feels like, again, physically, he's hit a bit of a wall in the last couple months. And, like, is that a sign of him aging? Is that a sign of the injuries catching up? Is that a sign of just, those years where he played in high-intense LAFC system? Maybe it wore out on his legs. We have no idea.
Would you prefer, like, if we sacrificed a K for, like, a depth piece like Chouanier or Raposo?
Actually, I'm a fan of the Chouanier shows.
I
think he's someone who's, like, could be very sneakily become an important number 8 for Canada if he keeps up what he's showing at Montreal right now.
I agree. And he's also versatile, which, again, when it comes to John Herdman, just loves it. So are we going to keep looking at Piet for now and still rock the 6 midfielders?
Let's do it. I think Piet, like, what's nice with Piet is that he's still young, but he's a leader, right? And he's like already like the 3rd most capped player on this current team that is at like 27. So it's something like he's he'll still be doing well then, and he can bring a bit of leadership. Because again, we do need to remember that because it is a young team looking across the board. And again, I like Laturi's upside, so we can leave him in for now. And if maybe he's someone that if the numbers get tight, he might end up on the chopping block.
All right, that's fair. Now we're on to this. This is in the next two positions are interesting. So the wingers / strikers. So starting with the wingers, I don't see Brim there. I see Buchanan and Davies. Obviously, I don't really see Brim.
Yeah, Brim is really going to depend what he does at Sparta Rotterdam this fall. He had the chance the start of this year in the Eredivisie, then he got loaned back out to Eindhoven. He's done very well. It feels kind of like make or break time. If he can go and become a regular at Sparta Rotterdam, maybe then he's in the discussion. But it's something where, in a year's time, there are a lot of exciting wingers. There also are guys like Hoylett, who again feels like he's going to still be plugging away at a high level, and you kind of can't forget it. A guy like him in that discussion makes it a bit tougher for a guy like Brim. But we'll see. I guess we'll see depending on how many spaces we have left.
So do we think Hoylett will be there? He's he's 32 now.
Yeah, I mean, again, younger team, and I think Hoylett's again he's aged like fine wine. I'd put my money on Hoylett being there.
I think so too. I don't. I'm gonna remove Brim for now. Hoylett can go over to the right because basically where he's featuring.
And like low key, it feels like, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like in midfield we're set to lose one of these guys. We just don't know who, but we'll see.
What about our guy Jacob Schaffelberg?
Well, depends what numbers we at right now. Let's do a count.
I don't think he's on my list right now. I missed him. Must have deleted him on accident. But I can stick him here. I don't see Schaff anywhere. I'll remove him.
I think we're at 6 midfielders.
We're at 22.
This is 22.
This is 22. So we have a little wiggle room. So the three strikers that I think up front are probably like you're going Ugbo as well, right? Like Ugbo, Laren, David.
I think that's fair to project that Ugbo gets a move elsewhere, does well. Laren keeps it up. David keeps it up. No surprises.
So we got one more. We got a room for one more. Do you want to put it in the left mid, left back, another striker? Do you want to sacrifice one of the midfielders? I mean, the Schwanier is the versatility shout. So maybe we add another striker, or maybe someone who could play striker wings. I don't know. That's the beauty of the versatility. Like you said, you got Larea who can go at left back. Davies at left back.
Do we go for a dual national?
A dual national. Who do we got? Jebison?
Yeah, maybe throw Jebison. I mean, I guess what's the weaknesses of this squad? Because center back, they have 4 plus Johnson can play there. Fullback, they have adequate cover. On the wing, they're a bit thin, so maybe a winger. But like again, Davies, Buchanan, Hoylett, maybe a winger. Because even it feels like a striker, they're set and they have guys who could play there. But
so
question, yeah,
I was gonna say so. Like Jay Nelson's an interesting one. I know John Herman's a fan of Jay Nelson.
I like that shout.
Corbiano, I'm not so convinced Liam Miller unless he gets a change of scenery. I'm not so convinced that we get Kolyosho. I'm not so sure. I think there's a chance Jebison does commit by then. So I mean, and I think Schaffelberg maybe deserves a look as well. So I'd be torn between Schaffelberg, Jebison, and Nelson. But again, this is a big year. Nelson just went to Europe. Really,
honestly, I'd go this one. I think we need some high upside picks. And Nelson's only like 19. He just moved to a good club. Again, it's a risk. For all we know, he doesn't play at Rosenborg, and this looks foolish. But I think we do for a 23rd player. Let's go Nelson. I think that could be a fun high upside pick that maybe we're sleeping on a bit that could kind of emerge in.
Look at that. So there it is, the final. And I barely messed up my nice spreadsheet here. So our final Copa America side for Canada is St. Clair, Crepeau, Borjan as the 3 keepers. Johnson, Larea at right back. Just Adekubi at left back, but there's coverage. We have 3 lefties, and Miller, Cornelius, Kennedy, Waterman as the righty for our 4 center backs. We got a stacked midfield, but this does give the option for the 4-3-3. Piet, Laturi, Schwanier, a little versatility pick there as well. Osorio, Kone, Eustachio, Buchanan, Hoylett, Jade Nelson, which is kind of like the wild card. Davies, David, Laren, Ugbo, and 2 more questions before we wrap this up, Alex. 1, Herman still going to be there, obviously. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
And the captaincy.
Captaincy.
And I want you to pick it from the starting 11, obviously. So if Borjan's there or not, I don't think he'll wear it. I don't think Hoylett will be a starter. I think we're looking at our kind of our starting 11. So who do you like? Basically, who's the next kind of captain after like the Hutchinson, Borjan, Vittoria look? Is it your Alistair Johnston? Is it your Davies? Maybe Eustachio? Who are you thinking?
I'm thinking the Vegas, or no, I guess the Vegas pick is the boring pick, right? The Vegas pick is the boring pick, so I'd go with my Vegas pick would be Johnston. My more interesting take, I think, would be Eustachio. I think he's someone that could maybe, I don't know, we've just seen a lot of leadership from him, and maybe he's someone that could step up and take that role. And yeah, I'd say those would probably be my two. And then my under the radar pick would be a guy like Adekugbe. I feel like he could be a very sneaky leader given how long he's been on the team and how he's really stepped up in the last few years in that regard.
Yeah, I would go Johnson in terms of personality. The level he's playing at screams a captain, and he's always going to be there. But then there's the star boy and Alphonso Davies. I feel like if Davies really wants to be the captain, I just feel like it would probably he'd have a little bit more likelihood to get it than Alistair Johnston. But again, I'm not 100% sure. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was our big preview for the upcoming Nations League matches against Curacao, Honduras. Talked a little dual national, talked a little Tamori. We also built 2024 Copa America squad. It's going to be fun tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us for 2 hours plus, and the match will be live on OneSoccer, so be sure to subscribe, check it out there. Alex, any final words before we go here?
No, necessarily just enjoy your football today, because it's a big one. Obviously, CanMNT in action, and NWSL kicks off today in the afternoon and evening, and a lot of Canadians there, a bit of MLS. Safe to say you're not going to be bored today if you want to keep yourself occupied. And then, of course, the big game at 9. So stay tuned for that, because I think it should be an interesting one, a good away day in CONCACAF. Hopefully a good battle and one that ends up with a good result.
Yeah, and no watch along for the match tonight. There may be one for Honduras, and if there's not one for the Honduras match, it's because I will be at the match, and maybe there's another special video to come through that. So just keep an eye on the OneSoccer YouTube channel. There will be some pretty cool content dropping as well. And Alex, I had fun as always on your guys' way out. Be sure to drop a like, drop a sub, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the match tonight, exclusively live on OneSoccer. All right. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers, friends.